The young man walks down the school corridor with his hands in his pockets. He is wearing a school uniform that looks more like a sports uniform, with a white hoodie under it. His dark hair looks careless, and two curls stick up like horns in the devil. He moves quietly and gloomily around the school under the angry, or hostile, or mocking glances of other students. Someone asks in an audible whisper whether this guy is Tang Zheng or not. Another asks if this is the loser who stands first from the end. Someone interrupts a friend, reminding him that Tang Zheng used to be the first in the city, but in response receives a disparaging exclamation. How someone like this young man has not yet been kicked out of the Pengcheng school. Anyway, nobody knows anything. The student reaches his class, the sign above which says that he belongs to the first class of high school. There are two guys in the room, one nondescript, the second with an interesting comb on his head, and a girl are having fun talking. But then Tang Zheng enters. His appearance does not go unnoticed. While the guy with horns sits down, an unremarkable young man tells his friend, apparently, to see who came, pointing at Tang Zheng's back. Kaio Fei also notices him, and the friend continues to be sarcastic for show. Isn't it there Tang Zheng, number one? The young man does not react to the ridicule of a classmate in any way, only silently takes a book out of his backpack. Then the guy with the comb calls out to a classmate, then, coming up, grabs the hood and asks why he ignores people. Kaio Fei imperiously pulls the hood over Tang Zheng's head and with an evil smile demands to finally return the money that he stole from him. He's not going to say it twice. The young man with the horns doesn't say a word. Because of this, the classmate is seriously angry and wholeheartedly beats Tang Zheng, asking if he is deaf or how Kaio Fei is actually talking to him. The bully rudely reminds the young man that now he is not number one, only the first from the end. It infuriates him that Tang Zheng is a favorite of adults, so he eats and dresses for school benefits, and also dared to steal his money. The guy with the horns calmly removes his hood and confidently declares that he did not steal anything. And if Kaio Fei has no proof, then you don't just blame people. A young man with a comb-over finally loses his temper. He grabs a classmate by the collar, lifts him up, bringing him closer to a face distorted with rage. This Tang Zheng always behaves like this. Who does he think he is? Thinks he's still number one. Having shouted, the bully suddenly smiles slyly. He gloatingly tells the guy about the rumor that his grandfather is ill. He must have stolen money to save his dying old man. Tang Zheng's orange eyes widen in shock. He is convulsively aware that the case is rubbish. Kaio Fei notices a change in his mood. He is not going to say anything anymore, and, supported by the class laughing at the young man, the bully only pushes more so that the young man quickly returns the money. Tang Zheng suddenly feels unwell. His head starts to hurt again. Everything around fades and darkens. The guy vaguely feels that he is falling from weakness, but someone is holding him back. Who is it? He vaguely discerns a female profile with short hair. Fan Shishi. Yes, it really is her. Why is she helping him? In any case, the girl fervently stands up for Tang Zheng. He has always been a good person. How can he steal money? Kaio Fei just treats others badly. After that, Fang Shishi turns to the young man, worried if he is okay. Maybe he should go to the nurse. Still feeling slightly unwell, the guy with the horns thanks his classmate and listlessly refuses the offer. Fan Shishi asks if he can get up, and Tang Zheng briefly confirms. She smiles back at him brightly. Kaio Fei is wheezing with anger, or maybe black envy. His fist clenches involuntarily. The bully yells whether Tang Zheng is pretending to be weak in order to win Shisha's sympathy. It's obvious to everyone that he just wants to start communicating with her. All he can do is hide behind a woman's back. Shishi is the most beautiful girl of the Pengcheng school. Does this loser seriously think he's her equal? Hearing these stories, the blonde visibly saddens, and Tang Zheng sees it perfectly. Now he himself is very angry with Kaio Fei. After hitting him hard on the nose, the young man with horns claims that he himself is worthless. The bully falls on desks and chairs, which causes a mess. Fan Shishi is shocked by the actions of a classmate and anxiously looks at what will happen next. Kaio Fei sits holding his hand to his nose for a few moments, then looks at it and sees blood. He rises slowly, wiping his nose at the same time, and wheezes that Tang Zheng dared to hit him. Anger slowly simmers in him, while some of the class surround him in solidarity. The bully lands a powerful kick. The guy puts a block, but it doesn't really help because he falls anyway. One by one, the blows of his peers are flying at him lying on the floor and covering his head. And Kaio Fei imperiously tells them to beat him with all their might, even kill him. The guy dared to hit him. Tang Zheng doesn't understand why this is happening to him. It all started after that accident. A young man was hit on the head on the way home from school right after the start of the school year. Since then, whenever he thinks about any question in the test, his head starts to hurt. Tang Zhen's grades plummeted, close people began to shun him, and others began to rejoice at the guy's misfortune. The only blessing is that grandpa is still with him. The young man fondly remembers how his grandfather, who is half a head shorter than him, always took him by the shoulders and said that he believed in Tang Zhen. Suddenly he hears something terrible. Tang Zhen will not die today, but the bully will kill his grandfather, who will not die in any way. The eyes of the guy with horns flash with indignation. He rises abruptly, smashes desks, chairs, and classmates around him, and rushes screaming to the unsuspecting Kaiao Fei. He stands and wipes his nose with a handkerchief that one girl gave him. A powerful hook hits a guy with a comb so that splashes of blood and saliva fly in all directions. Kaiao Fei falls into a pile of desks and chairs again, and Tang Zhen, grabbing him by the collar of his shirt, sits astride him and hisses that if anyone should die here, it's him. One part of the class is excited. The other, on the contrary, is having fun at the sight of the spectacle. Suddenly, a teacher comes into the classroom, full and not very attractive, despite all efforts. She menacingly asks what they are doing here and demands Tang Zhen to move away from his classmate. Then the woman takes him out into the corridor for an important conversation. All the other guys cheerfully climbed out of the window because they are very interested in how it will end. Someone thinks that Tang Zhen is now a corpse. Another agrees, since he was caught by Wu Kuihong herself. A third comments on what a great show. Meanwhile, the teacher scolds the young man. All he can do now is pull the whole class down, steal money, and treat people badly. In general, he doesn't think what he's doing at all. Is all of the above what a student should do? However, Tang Zhen firmly objects that he did not steal the money, just Kaiao Fei framed him. Wu Kuihong smiles mockingly and wonders why then the classmate framed the guy with horns, and not someone else. In her opinion, a good conscience is not afraid of slander. The bully is standing in the classroom at this time, all beaten up, and fervently admits to Shishi that he has no idea how that old witch can do with Tang Zhen. The excited girl goes to the teacher, assuring him that this is some kind of mistake and the young man did nothing. She proves her opinion by saying that they have all been studying together with Tang Zhen for 2 years, so everyone should know what kind of person he is. The woman reluctantly makes concessions and pretends to agree with Fan Shishi if only she would fall behind. However, Wu Kuihong immediately adds that she will take care of everything herself. Rubbing her hands, she kindly asks someone to take Kaiao Fei to the medical room, and the others to return to their studies. Some girl barely drives the blonde back into the classroom, pushing in the back, and the bully makes a face at a classmate and leaves with a friend. Wu Kuihong waves to the students to go about their business. Finally, she turns to Tang Zhen, pokes her finger in his face and grumpily declares that he should not have come to class today. And since this is the case, let the young man with horns go and clean up in the basement of the laboratory. He's getting cold. Will he have to go to a haunted house? The teacher rudely cuts off so that the guy doesn't say stupid things and immediately goes there to clean up. Well, Tang Zhen, armed with a broom, dutifully goes to the fatal basement. At the same moment, Kaiao Fei rubs his nose and is indignant that the young man with horns dared to remove it, because he is definitely a corpse. A friend, grinning, asks him not to get angry, especially if he didn't hear Tang Zhen was sent to a haunted house, and he, by the way, can get hurt there. The bully, puzzled, asks what kind of place it is. A nondescript guy tells how a girl was killed in that basement a few years ago, and they say that even her blood was sucked out. At the same time, the police did not say anything about this case, and nothing has happened in the last few years. That's why, as the comrade sums up, no one wants to go to that laboratory class. Kaiao Fei concisely admits that he has not heard anything like this, which his friend is very surprised at. However, the bully sincerely believes that Wu Kuihong was a real beast this time, and this makes him smile. Meanwhile, Tang Zhen opens the basement door, and all the dust that was nearby cordially flies out at him. Going inside, he notes a rather obvious thing. It's very dirty here. In fact, the room is filled with cobwebs. A thick layer of dust has formed on furniture and things. Boxes are lying around randomly. And it's also dark here. The young man suddenly shudders. He freezes in fear. A voice speaks to him, rejoicing that the boy has finally come. Because of the fright, he loudly asks who it is, and then realizes with horror that he cannot move. The voice turns back to the boy with the words, how long he has been waiting for him. Tang Zhen is scared, but loudly demands the stranger not to hide, but to show himself, or the guy will catch him himself. Who does that voice belong to? A small blue-green light appears in the dark. He is just about to introduce himself when he is interrupted by someone else. A huge demon appears behind Tang Zheng. He is wearing a pale-colored kimono over his blue skin, long gray hair, mustache and beard are fluttering in the air, and 2 purple stripes run along his face. He asks if the young man wants to fix everything, but immediately imperiously declares that he has no right to think about such a thing. Apparently, the demon is invisible to Tang Zheng, since he, starting to get annoyed, actively sentences the stranger to appear faster. However, the one who was originally going to appear before the schoolboy also appears. A funny creature that looks like a red bun, with a wide mouth, large eyes and thick dark eyebrows curled in the form of clouds. He also has a lock of dark hair that turns into a tail, at the end of which that light glows. The creature angrily asks the demon what he wants. The man repeats the question and angrily shouts that he wants to kill Tang Zhen. The guy, having seen nothing, decides to turn around. The demon with a predatory smile warns him never to turn around. The round creature quickly figures out what the enemy means, and shouts so that the demon does not even think about doing it. The creature creates a murderous beam of energy and directs it at him. From such force it crumples, even in some places the wooden floor breaks. But Tang Zheng already notices this, and, frankly, his eyes are popping out of his head. He has no idea what's going on here at all. The round creature, almost crying, flies to the bro and asks him to run. Naturally, the young man does not see him, but something dark gets into his forehead, from which he does not have time to close his hands. It was a demon that reached Tang Zhen before the magical creature, blocking the way for him. The guy feels like he suddenly got worse. His head starts to hurt more than usual. He falls to his knees and grabs his head with his hands. It's as if some changes are taking place inside his brain, as if the nerve nodes are artificially increasing in size. And then they break. Tang Zheng screams in pain, tears stream down his cheeks, and, as a result, he loses consciousness. The demon laughs disgustingly. This kid is a loser and will soon disappear from the face of the earth. The round creature, looking at the schoolboy, tensely concludes that he seems to have died. This news only inflames the man more. Suddenly, flames begin to envelop him. While the demon is perplexed, the magical creature, dodging the steady streams of fire, informs that child is not Xuanyang's body. This means that Tang Zheng is the deity of the 9 suns. The creature mockingly notes that since the demon started everything himself, then let him deal with the consequences himself. He only manages to shout in horror that he does not agree with this, until the flames completely engulfed him. The funny creature replies with a smile that it is God's will. Suddenly a new problem arises. Enchanted circles with hieroglyphs appear in the place where the demon was. The creature curses softly. Tang Zhen opens his eyes with difficulty, but immediately screams, jumps up in fright, repeatedly repeating the word demon. Someone reassuringly replies that he is not a demon, so the bro does not need to be afraid. The young man timidly asks who and where is the one he is talking to. The round creature replies that it is now in Tang Zhen's head, and presents itself as a 1,000-year-old man, a master with great power. He asks the guy not to worry, but he will be in his head for a while, promising to meet all expectations. The red creature enthusiastically announces that it should teach Tang Zhen cultivation and make him strong. Be that as it may, the student only indifferently refuses and allows the creature to dump. The magical creature angrily resents. The young man does not want to learn the skill from him. Tang Zhen confirms this, but he thinks to himself that the old man talks too much. Instead, he suggests that the creature simply cannot get out of it, and, what a surprise, hits the spot. The round creature looks like a child who has done something and has been caught doing it. The guy mockingly continues, saying that the old man still says that he has great strength, although he can't even get out of his head. These words hurt Kruglyashka's feelings and make him confused. How can someone like Tang Zheng say that he can't get out? He just wants to absorb the energy and then come back. The young man with horns displeased covers his ears. However, the old man quickly becomes serious and tells Tom about the dial of fate on his body, a pair of enchanted circles with hieroglyphs and strokes depicted on them. This dial of fate has accelerated due to changes in the body of the deity of the 9 suns, and the only one who can help the student is the red creature. Tang Zheng, with his arms crossed on his chest, does not really understand what the dial of fate is and which deity of the 9 suns he is talking about. The old man explains, the dial of fate is a vessel of life, and when its arrow points to midnight, the person dies. He admits that he does not know much, but he is sure that the body of the deity of the 9 suns has incredible power. The guy, as if parodying a new acquaintance, presents a different story. How a long time ago some strange hero with a hammer went to the monster. Before Tang Zheng has time to say anything else, the red creature screams indignantly so that he does not mumble. The old man, exhaling heavily, adds that the student should not take everything he heard for granted. Maybe his body is strong, but the opposite case is also quite possible. A guy can die from an overabundance of energy. That is, during the first 20 years of life, a child can die. Tang Zhen is no longer joking. He, of course, nervously clings to the words of the creature about the fact that the body of the deity is strong. And he will just turn 18 this year. Everything's going to be fine, isn't it? The red creature sternly asks if it looks like he is joking now. Hearing this, the young man becomes gloomy and quiet. The old man smiles faintly. He takes the opportunity and declares that Tang Zhen, fortunately, met him, and he has a way out, but the schoolboy will have to help the creature. The student begins to dig under the table. He asks if the creature is sure that that thing is right here. He confirms it. Finally, having found the object, Tang Zhen lets him know about the find, and the old man in response yells at him to grab it faster. That thing turned out to be a small paper scroll. The guy, waving his hand, reminds that now it's the creature's turn to help him. He smiles and assures that he always keeps his word, after which he opens his mouth wide. Tang Zhen watches in amazement as lightning bolts gather into a ball of energy in the roundel's mouth. In the end, the old man launches a bright beam of energy directly at the student. For a while, a bright aura envelops him. The young man realizes that some knowledge appears in his head. And even so much, even his head is spinning. Now his body is overflowing with power. Suddenly, the young man realizes that the red creature has quieted down. Did it really run away? But it physically couldn't do it. Besides, why did he need this scroll so badly? Tang Zhen first sits thoughtfully with the scroll in his hands, then decides to open it after all. Spreading the scroll to its full length, the guy catches himself thinking that he expected to see something like a heavenly script. But here is the most ordinary text. He begins to read, "The universe, the wheel has a way. The Tao, that is, the way of man, generates chaos. Such is life." While the young man is saying the text out loud, a light magic circle appears on the floor around him, and this energy spreads to his entire body. Tang Zhen looks at his hands, trying to figure out what they are. Finally, a magical creature appears. As soon as it opens its eyes, it is horrified by the sight of the guy and starts screaming how a child can have so much energy and what he did at all. Tang Zhen does not answer. He only says in amazement that this is madness. The red creature loudly shouts what a fool the young man is. He has not yet explained how to neutralize his side of yang, since the stronger the yang energy, the closer he is to death. Tang Zhen, of course, did not like such an address to him. He retorts, blaming the old man for everything, because after the guy helped the creature, it just disappeared. He got confused. And now the creature suddenly appears and says that he is one step closer to death. Tang Zhen, irritably poking his finger at the creature, asks how Pokeball thinks who should have helped him. The old man no less angrily explains that he was weak and fell into hibernation, simultaneously wondering what Pokeball is. He asks the student to tell him how he was able to improve so quickly. Some have been practicing for thousands of years. Tang Zhen does not understand what is meant by improvement, looking at the scroll. Didn't he just read some writing? The red creature intensely repeats the last words of the young man. Then the guy realizes what's going on. He, grinning maliciously, apologizes to the old Pokeball. You see, he has forgotten that it is already 1,000 years old, which means that he reads Chinese characters in the old-fashioned way, vertically and from right to left, and not in the modern way, as in Western writing, horizontally and from left to right. However, the magical creature understands that the matter is different. This is the will of heaven. The ancient scroll belongs to Tang Zhen. Suddenly, a breathless Fan Shishi appears in the doorway, and quickly tells the guy that the teacher is going to his house to tell Grandpa everything. She heard that a classmate was going to be expelled. Tang Zhen immediately jumps up, thanks the girl on the move and runs away. The blonde shouts after him that she will ask her father to help him, so let the young man not worry about his grandfather. After a short time, Tang Zhen gets home. He opens the apartment door and calls his grandfather, but he is met only by silence and emptiness. In fact, at this time, his grandfather is in a landfill, surrounded by 3 guys armed with iron pipes. One of them, with purple hair and black glasses, hostilely declares that the damned old man knows where he is, in the territory of the tigers. He has to pay them. However, the grandfather, with unkempt gray hair and mustache, in a worn tracksuit, does not remember that this territory was their land, especially since he always collected trash here. For example, now he has a bag full of plastic bottles and metal jars in his hands. The second guy, dark-skinned and with a big fleece on his head, angrily growls what kind of nonsense he is talking, and asks if the old man is running into something, or how. Suddenly Grandpa screams, drops the bag and grabs his t-shirt. He starts screaming desperately that an old man is being beaten here. Then he starts spinning around his axis and repeating it a little viciously. The dark-skinned guy yells angrily that they haven't even touched him. And while the old man continues to shout that he is dying, he turns to his brother with the words that he has not met this man before. After that, seeing how the grandfather theatrically falls to the ground, he offers to really beat him. The third member of the group, a fat man licking an orange lollipop, does not express any emotions. The guy with glasses is confused by this situation, but he asks a hot-tempered friend not to panic, otherwise they may have problems. Anyway, this old man is not a werewolf, but a borrower. The dark-skinned guy is distracted by the fat man, threatening that if he licks him again, he will beat him. At this time, the guy with purple hair continues. The old man owes 200,000 yuan. The three of them collect debts for the tigers, and the grandfather owed them a lot. They were sent here to deal with him, and he lives here for himself, and even smiles every day. If they don't figure it out, then the tigers will send them to a sex change operation, after which they will become idols and will perform for the attack. But most importantly, they won't be able to get girls anymore. The guy with glasses adds to himself that in no case will he allow such a situation. The comrades didn't really listen to him anyway. Grabbing the fat man by the collar, the swarthy guy yells angrily that he told him not to lick, otherwise, it turns out, he wants to be beaten. At this time, the leader of the group is intensely arguing that he has not faced such a situation once in his 20+ years, but he cannot lose to that old man. That's why he picks up the phone, dials some donhua, asks if there is any other business, and after receiving an affirmative answer, happily confirms that he is already flying to fulfill it. The guy with purple hair turns his friends around, telling them to go faster. The guy with the fleece angrily growls that he will beat the old man next time, and the leader no less angrily orders him to close his mouth. Grandpa, lying on the ground, smiles triumphantly. The guy with glasses, taking out a cigarette, thinks, let these boobies go together next time, otherwise he does not want to become an idol. The dark-skinned guy at this time asks the brother with purple hair what they will do next, but he does not have time to answer. A can of Pepsi with force flies into his forehead, knocking a cigarette out of his mouth. The comrades anxiously pick up their brother. The guy with the fleece yells who did it, and promises to beat the culprit right now. It was Tang Zheng. He kicked the first jar he came across, and now he's shouting how the three of them could attack one grandfather. The swarthy man irritably answers who touched his grandfather at all. The old man himself, still lying on the ground, hears the voice of his grandson and is confused trying to figure out why he returned so early. The guy with the fleece hisses that this little guy really hit his brother, while he wheezes that he can't breathe. Now even the fat man was angry. A young man with horns runs up to his grandfather, excitedly asking how he is. He laughs weakly and assures that everything is fine. The schoolboy still wants to say something, but the old man tries to warn him about the danger. A swarthy guy approaches from behind and angrily swings an iron pipe. The red creature also tries to warn Tang Zhen, who manages to notice the pipe with one eye. There is a dull sound of impact. The student remains in the position he was in, and so does the grandfather. Tang Zhen wakes up at home in his bed. As soon as he sits down, a red creature appears next to him and, smiling, says that the guy has not only regained his strength, but also healed. In general, according to Krugliash, he needs to thank his grandfather, who just ran into the room with a hot steaming plate in his hands. In order not to let those scoundrels take Tang Zhen, Grandpa knelt down and begged them for a long time, holding out the last kopecks. The young man is made to worry a lot by the fact that he himself is to blame for everything that happened. He watches the old man running briskly from room to room. Having decided, the guy turns to Tian with a statement that he wants to become stronger. He will no longer allow others to suffer because of his weakness. So, it's time for dinner. The menu is sparse. Only rice, empty broth, and a small plate of boiled vegetables are on the table. Grandpa encourages Jen to eat more, but then unexpectedly adds that if he leaves in the future, he will have to be able to take good care of himself. The young man is frightened by these words, but outwardly only gets angry at the old man's words and asks if anything has happened. Fortunately, the old man is fine, according to him, and his words were a joke. He even bends his arms as if he wants to show biceps, which he does not have. Suddenly, a voice is heard outside the front door asking if Tang Zheng lives in this place. The guy gets up from the table, asking Grandpa not to be distracted from eating while he goes to check. He asks if his grandson's friends came so late, but the young man grimly replies that this is the class teacher. The old man jumps excitedly on the spot from this news. Why didn't the little one warn earlier that the teacher was coming? He instantly flies up to the door and opens it, presenting to Jen's gaze a teacher holding a red umbrella in her hand. Grandfather hurriedly asks the woman to go inside. She came to them, despite such a downpour. Feeling uncomfortable, he adds that Jeng has achieved such results in his studies thanks to her help, after which he holds out his hand to greet her. Wu Kuihong notices this, but dismissively ignores him, saying that it's not worth thanking her, and in general she needs to tell the old man something else. The guy quickly cuts her off and aggressively offers to go out to talk to him. But the grandfather angrily stops him, insisting that he himself should not talk to the young man's teacher. The woman listlessly greets Tang Zhen, stating that he is already at home, which means she will say everything directly. The teacher, smiling mockingly, announces that the guy is lucky. He can come tomorrow, just not to the 1st grade, but to the 7th, although initially they were going to exclude him altogether, but Fan Shishi's father helped. The old man asks disappointed what Zheng has done, and the teacher begins to list casually. He is in last place according to estimates. Stole money, hit a classmate. If he is his grandfather, then, according to her, he should take care of the young man properly. And it is not so much the grades that are important, as his terrible character is important. She thinks that's enough. The guy gets covered to punch Wu Kuihong and starts shouting that he didn't steal any money, it's all lies. However, at this moment, grandfather calmly stops him with a single movement of his hand, as if asking him to leave the case to him. He seriously asks what the teacher means. This time, the woman decides not to beat around the bush, but to say directly that because of such a family as an old man, Tang Zheng grew up an outcast. Grandfather begins to shake. He becomes gloomy, then quietly apologizes that he doesn't know why she says that. However, after that, he grabs a broom and, swinging it at Wu Kuihong, angrily yells that he knows best what kind of grandson he has. She barely dodges the blow, hurriedly running away to the cries of her grandfather, so that she gets out of their house, since she is no longer welcome here. The teacher, frightened, finally concludes for herself that they are not only poor, but also barbarians. Do they think she'll want to come to them? Yes, even if they invite her, she will still never appear in the old man's house again. Still angry, Grandpa asks the guy not to be afraid of anything. His homeroom teacher is a bad person, and the next time she talks nonsense, he won't just let her go. Nevertheless, he gets back to normal pretty quickly and clarifies whether everything is so serious at school for a young man. Instead of answering, Zheng sincerely asks grandfather to believe that he will be the first according to the results of the entrance exams. At first the old man is surprised, but then he smiles contentedly and confirms that he believes in his grandson. Some time passes, now it's the middle of the night. Zheng sits on the bed and listens attentively to the magical creature. As for the power of yang, a guy can prolong his life by combining it with the power of yin. He clarifies what the creature means, and the spirit continues that the power of yin is not very different from the power of yang. But it is better to do it in a deserted place. However, the young man should not rush. With the current strength, he still will not succeed. The student is noticeably sad, because, it turns out, he will die anyway. The red creature hastily notes that he did not talk about only one method, that is, another, but in his case only luck will help them. The fact is that yang is male energy. Yin is female energy, and since a young man has an overabundance of yang energy, he needs yin energy for balance. In general, Jen needs a girl. The next day has come. The students are rushing to school in the morning. Tang Zheng is among them. As he walks, he humbly reasons that if he doesn't meet a woman with pure yin energy, he will die. The creature confirms this and adds that there are very few women in the world who have pure yin energy, so everything depends on luck. Someone gently touches Tang Zhen's shoulder. A breathless and flushed Fan Shishi, smiling, says that she called a classmate, but he did not hear, and even walks so fast. He is quietly surprised. The girl is interested in how the conversation went yesterday. Remembering Shishi's promise to help him and Wu Kuihong's words about him moving to the 7th grade, the young man politely thanks for the help. She shakes her head and lets Zheng know that she believes in him. She is very glad that he was not expelled. At these words, a happy smile lights up her face, and a sweet blush covers her cheeks. The guy is slightly embarrassed by the sight of Fan Shishi, so Tang Zheng goes up to the floor where his new class is located. Enthusiastic conversations are heard from all sides. Someone warns that a new song will be released today, and another offers to go to the store after school and buy a CD. Someone else asks if friends have read the news on NBC. They confirm and admit that it was very funny. Another, remembering those news, begins to laugh, at the same time saying that it was especially funny about the man in the car, and so on, and so on, and so on. Under this hubbub, the young man passes the floor and reaches the right office, realizing that this is the legendary 7th grade straight from hell. As soon as he opens the door, a sponge for a board flies into his forehead. The whole class stops in confusion, while the sponge calmly falls to the floor and rolls away somewhere. The whole class instantly starts screaming in a kind of stupid way at the sight of the imperturbable Tang Zhen. He only discouragingly reminds himself that now these guys sitting in the mud with their desks placed at random are his classmates. The guy takes the last vacant desk in the row by the window. Getting comfortable, he finds himself thinking that he expected more from the guys here. But, obviously, the level of intelligence in this class by his standards leaves the best to do. Suddenly Zheng notices the eyes of his classmates on him. The looks seem heavy to him, even hostile. But the guys suddenly start laughing in chorus, not in an evil way, but in a kind way, which makes the young man's hair stand on end. While he is confused trying to guess what amused them so much, a chubby boy sitting on a desk in front turns to him. He has curly brown hair, and in his hands is a yellow Nintendo. He affably introduces himself as Feng Yun and advises the newcomer to move to another place. Zheng warily asks the reason, because no one seems to be sitting here. The fat man, keen on the game, wants to explain something, but the beginning of the lesson is announced, and he falls silent. Only Tang Zheng sits down on a chair as, oh, a miracle. The whole office, previously full of garbage, begins to shine with cleanliness, and the students obediently sit at their desks and unanimously greet their teacher. The young man is amazed by the picture presented. Does the legendary 7th grade really want to study? And why has it suddenly become so clean here? The rhythmic clatter of heels is heard. When their owner appears on the threshold of the classroom, everyone as one is touched by what a beautiful teacher is today, not hesitating to say it out loud. She puts the teacher's magazine on the chair. She is a beautiful woman with a good figure. Despite her youth, she looks authoritative and commands respect by her appearance alone. She is probably quite a stoic person, judging by her cold demeanor. She has long green hair combed back and light blue eyes that go perfectly with her hair. She wears a standard uniform, a white shirt with a large neckline and a straight short skirt, as well as extravagant earrings in the form of blue tassels with yellow pom-poms at the base. So, the teacher summarizes what all the guys already know. Today a new student came to them, Tang Zheng. She notices a new student among the students. The guy looks at her bored. Then the woman decides not to make any introductory speeches and suggests going straight to classes. After that, a smiling fat man turns to the young man. He reverently asks if Liu Qingmei is really a beauty, and proudly adds that they don't listen to anything except her lessons. It seems that his nose even stretched a little at these words. However, Tang Zheng sincerely wonders what there is to be proud of. He shudders at such thoughts. He sighs heavily, then picks up a pen. The guy in any case does not intend to give up, because of that accident. He missed a lot, so, whether it's 1st grade or 7th grade, he will make up for everything. As it turned out, the class was not fully assembled. The back entrance door quietly opens, and a girl with pink hair pulled into 2 ponytails, in pink sneakers and a red short skirt crawls into the classroom as unobtrusively as possible on all fours. For classmates, she, of course, remained noticed. Therefore, the boys at the back of the desks, smiling, whisper to the girl to know that the newcomer has taken her place. She is angry and scared at the same time, puts her finger to her lips to silence them. Otherwise the teacher will catch her. An irritated girl with pink eyes successfully crawls to Tang Zhen's desk and whispers that this is her place. The young man is distracted by her for a second, and then, as if nothing had happened, returns back to the lesson. At first, the girl is angry, but at some point a great idea comes to her head, which makes her smile maliciously. The plan is simple: pinch the beginner's leg, which she does. From pain and surprise, Zheng screams at the whole class and jumps up from his seat, and the classmate tries in vain to make him be quieter. The only thing is that she quickly gets excited herself and starts screaming out loud. Why did the young man yell so much? Does he want her burned? And anyway, why the hell is he sitting in her place? Liu Qingmei had been writing something on a green chalkboard before, but she can no longer tolerate such insolence. Out of anger, the woman breaks the chalk in her hand in half. She turns to Yi Jingdeng, who angrily pokes her finger in Zhen's face and scolds her severely. The girl was late for class, and now she's making noise, so let her go to the playground and run 20 laps. Yi Jingdeng, nervous, wants to object something, but the teacher cuts her off to go before she gets angry. The girl confusedly agrees and heads for the exit. On the way, she turns around, showing the young man a fist, and angrily orders him to listen to her attentively. Then, lowering her voice, calls the place and time of the meeting, the roof, the next physical education lesson. Yi Jingdeng will be waiting for him there, and let him just try, according to her, not to come, the guy is a corpse. Tang Zheng does not react in any way to the trick of a classmate, while the fat man, turning to him, explains with concern that this is why he advised to move. Sister Yi Jingdeng, as he knows firsthand, is terrible in anger. In general, Zheng is, in fact, he's not up to the consequences at all right now. The red creature asks if the young man feels this power. He confirms it with concentration. The moment the girl pinched him, he felt a clear spark of energy inside himself. Tang Zheng was amazed. The arrow on his dial of fate turned back. The guy with the horns glances at Jingdeng. Ta now, indignant from the bottom of his heart, threatens another classmate not to laugh at her if he wants to live. Zheng knows one thing for sure, this girl has wonderful yin energy. After a while, Yi Jingding comes to the roof. With her arms crossed over her chest, she impatiently waits for the young man with horns. But every minute she gets more and more angry, realizing that he probably is not going to come. Finally, she can't stand it and starts screaming in anger, scaring away pigeons on the roof. Damn newbie. Jen, being in a completely different place, sneezes loudly. The human body has 8 main channels. Each of them has its own Kai energy. The level of perfection is accordingly divided into breath, fundamentals, hunger, immortality, purification of yin, divine energy, and Mahayana, one of the 2 main directions in Buddhism. Each level is divided into 9 steps. Zheng sits in the lotus position and meditates with his hands joined in the shape of a diamond. It's like he's in the astral right now. A sparkling ball of energy, from which light streams radiate in all directions, protects the young man so that no one interferes with the lesson. Tian explains in a measured way that because of the energy of the 9 suns, the guy has 1 channel more than ordinary people. Although he had reached the first level of Kai purification with the scroll, Zheng still hadn't reached the level where spells could be perfected. For this reason, the magical creature is first going to teach that martial art called Heavenly Hand. The old man thinks for himself that this martial art may be of an entry level, but it is still powerful. In short, using only him, the young man will be quite capable of defeating the enemy. Zheng, having apparently finished concentrating his strength, exhales a thick stream of energy. After that, he gets up, takes as many tennis balls from the pantry basket as he can hold in his hands, and throws them all at once. Here the most interesting thing begins, using the technique of performing the Heavenly Hand. The guy collects all the balls while they are still in the air. This means that he does it with such speed and accuracy that, as a result, he collects all the flying balls to the last one, scattering dust clouds to the sides. Tian opens his mouth in shock. Zheng, not at all out of breath, turns to Tom and makes sure whether it was necessary to do so. He stands with his hands full of balls. Only one particularly restless falls out of the pile, and falls to the floor with a slap. The old man is still shaken. Tang Zheng has an incredible learning ability. Now the 7th grade has a physical education lesson at a street stadium. Feng Yun, dressed in a white t-shirt and dark sports shorts, is sitting on the grass and playing Nintendo with a focused face. Suddenly, something hits him painfully on the back of his head, causing the fat man's eyes to almost pop out. He looks up from the game, rubs the back of his head, then angrily hisses that it actually hurt, and turns to the troublemaker. This is Yi Jingdang. She imperiously asks if Feng Yun knows where the newcomer has gone. He almost shits his pants out of fear, realizing that his sister is in front of him. He even drops the console. Sweating with excitement, the fat man clarifies whether she is referring to Tang Zhen, and immediately points his finger at a blue building not far away, saying that he went to the room for self-preparation. Yi Jingding only warns sternly, if the newcomer is not there, Feng Yun is a corpse. The girl goes to the building, and the guy loudly assures her, scratching his head, how he can lie to her. However, at the same time, he actively thinks that the girl is furious, so Tang Zhen should be more careful. Meanwhile, Tian sedately explains something to the young man with horns. In order to start practicing the spell, he needs to reach level 3 as soon as possible. Zheng makes a logical conclusion that since the old man says this, there is some way to quickly grow up to him. And yes, there is one, a schoolboy, according to the creature, just needs to practice in real combat. Only, as Zheng notes, while putting the balls back in the basket, the society of his time is very peaceful. It will be difficult to enter into a real fight with someone. At that moment, the front door opens with a bang. Someone strikes a crushing blow with his fist, but the young man manages to deviate. Yi Jingding angrily announces that she has found a newbie, then asks why he didn't come to the roof. The question, to be honest, puts Jen at a dead end. He does not catch up with what kind of roof he is talking about. However, he quickly remembers that the girl told him to come to the roof, after which he gently punches his fist on his palm and admits that he forgot. Anger is slowly boiling in Yi Jingding. Has the newcomer forgotten? She abruptly grabs Tang Zhen's wrist and shoulder. He is distracted by the pure yin force that passes through her hands along his body. Only the next moment he suddenly realizes that the girl grabbed him for a reason. Turning around with force, she throws the dumbfounded young man over her shoulder and throws him to the floor, shouting that she will kill him. Zheng frantically tries to figure out why this girl is so strong. Tian casually comments that you should not underestimate her. She is a level 4 martial artist. Picking her finger in her ear, the girl asks with displeasure what he is mumbling there, and also adds that the guy dared to provoke her. Only now she notices that Tang Zhen has disappeared, and is surprised and indignant where he is going. The young man is startled, pinching with all his legs, seeing how Yi Jingdang is chasing him. The red creature, following him, is seriously furious. Why is he running away? This is a good way to improve strength. Such a case is rare. The student only has time to object that she has reached the 4th level, and he has just started his journey. Of course, a martial artist is no match for a cultivator, according to the magical creature, and the girl has been practicing kung fu for at least 10 years. Naturally, she is at this stage stronger than a guy who has been self-improving for just a day. Zheng sweeps past Feng Yun. A gust of wind warps his hairstyle, attracting attention. Suddenly, the young man with horns realizes that he will not be able to escape, so he stops abruptly. A running classmate sees it. Tang Zhen turns to Yi Jingdeng with a straight face. Without stopping for a second, the girl raises her hand to strike, asking if the newcomer wanted to escape, and if so, let him go to hell. A powerful blow raises clouds of dust around the two. The young man holds a reception. He must fight. Feng Yun stares at the frozen opponents with all his eyes, looking up from the console, and not understanding what is happening. Yi Jingdeng is very surprised by what he sees in front of him now. Tang Zheng parried her blow using the heavenly hand. Meanwhile, Kaio Fei and his nondescript boyfriend enter their classroom. A friend tells the bully that Yi Jingdeng and Tang Zheng from the 7th grade are fighting at the stadium. He asks about Yi, is this the girl who fights well? A friend confirms and cheerfully offers to go and see how that little one will die. Fan Shishi, who is sitting at her desk, hears all this while she is scribbling something in her notebook with a pen. She's worried that Tang Zhen is in trouble again. All the students ask each other to be faster, because Yi Jingdang is fighting at the stadium, and her opponent is like Tang Zheng from the 7th grade. The girl, still in the same attacking pose, calculates something in her mind, then grabs the guy by the sleeve of his t-shirt. Smiling maliciously, she jumps up high while holding a classmate by the t-shirt, puts her foot in for a kick and aims at his head. However, she never reaches Zheng because he blocks the blow with his hand. The thought involuntarily flashes through his mind that this leg strength reminds him of something. Yi Jingding makes a tactical retreat, making the sun go back, and then admits that she did not expect anything like this from the young man, did not expect that he would turn out to be a warrior. Tang Zhengwash mentally asks the spirit what she means by talking about him as a warrior. Tian, wearing large round glasses, starts explaining. The girl means that the young man is just a warrior of simple martial arts, so there is nothing to worry about. Although, like a cultivator, Yi Jingding has her own way, but her strength still cannot be compared with the power of cultivators. Jen, however, is more concerned about why the creature put on glasses, but this does not prevent him from continuing the monologue. So, the strength that, according to Tian, warriors develop through exercises is called inner strength. It is very different from the Kai energy cultivators receive from heaven and earth. The system of warriors is the same as that of cultivators, only divided into 7 levels. Body hardening, routine, natural qualities, mentor, warrior, emperor, god. There are 9 steps in each level, and that girl, as far as the old man understood, is now at the 4th stage of purification. The cultivator has the 4th stage of Kai purification more powerful, but Tang Zheng is now at the 1st stage, so he lags behind his classmate, inferior in strength. The girl pulls the guy out of his thoughts, arrogantly wondering if he still wants to use the heavenly hand martial art technique. But the other thing is bad in this situation. The young man could not even notice when and how she was behind his back. That is, in the blind spot, now creating a great threat. Zheng is stunned as Yi Jingding jumps up again and puts his foot up for a powerful attack. Mocking, she offers a bet. If the guy can touch her, he won, and if he loses, he will leave the 7th grade. At this moment, the girl slaps a classmate in the face with such force that he, without having time to do anything, flies off a few meters, plowing the ground with himself. Meanwhile, a crowd of spectators has already gathered around the place of the fight. It's fun for everyone to watch how strong Yi Jingdang is beating a beginner. Someone even cheers for her, and another admiringly compares the girl to a monster. There is also Fan Shishi among them, but she stands in the very back rows, because she can't see anything behind the heads of tall guys. The girl, who is tired of looking at the backs of the guys, tries to squeeze forward and accidentally touches someone. The guy with the slicked back hair asks with displeasure that she is pushing, and turns around. Fan Shishi sincerely apologizes, while the stranger is busy looking at her. What a cutie she is. A blush covers his cheeks. He slyly asks if the girl wants to watch the fight. When the girl actively nodded in response, the guy, pulling out of nowhere a bouquet of roses, offers the following condition. If he helps her squeeze through, then she will have to agree to his request, namely to become his girlfriend. To his great regret, Fan Shishi did not even listen to the rest. Now she is trying to squeeze in between some other guys, without ceasing to apologize and drive them into a blush. She succeeds. Yes, she almost falls, but now she is standing in the front rows, where Kaio Fei is also standing with a friend. Both notice Fan Shishi. The bully quietly comments that he does not remember that she was interested in fights. The girl can finally assess the situation. Tang Zheng is lying motionless on the ground next to Feng Yun, who is so shocked that he does not think to leave. Fan Shishi, without noticing it, leans forward, because she really wants to help the young man with horns. However, someone grabs her hand. Kaio Fei seriously tells the girl not to go to the battlefield. She still won't be able to help. She wants to object. In the end, Shishi gathers his strength, watching the guy with the horns tremble in pain, and firmly objects. There's no way she's going to stand by, as she can't leave Tang Zhen in the lurch. Zheng himself, all scratched, continues to lie. Yi Jingdang is sure that this is the end, so she turns to the exit, exhaling in disappointment that she had hoped for something more interesting. But the young man still rises heavily to his feet, shaking himself slightly. The girl watches him in amazement, thinking that from such a strong blow, only abrasions remained on his body. If so, what is his level? Suddenly, a wave of rage mixed with fear overwhelms Yi Jingdang. Is it possible that the guy's level is higher than hers? However, he uses an entry-level martial art, so it's hard for her to guess what Tang Zhen's real strength is. Flash thoughts that he expects to win with the simplest arts, most likely considering himself very experienced, make the girl angry. And the young man with horns, rubbing his cheek, at this moment compares the strength of Yi Jingdang with the same Kaio Fei, and comes to the conclusion that she is certainly on another level. In any case, the girl does not waste time and, approaching the guy, is preparing to attack again. She jumps in, puts her foot in, bringing down another blow. Everyone, Feng Yun, Fan Shishi, even Kaio Fei, freezes in tense anticipation. The girl, however, does not notice that the attack falls on the ground, on an empty place. Tang Zheng suddenly comes in from the rear, which Yi Jingdang sees at the very last moment, and hits her on the neck, clasping her hands in a lock. Before losing consciousness, the girl realizes that the classmate used her own technique. Only when did he learn it? Be that as it may, Yi Jingdang finally gets an answer from Jen that this is a secret. She falls limply. The crowd is shocked, and Feng Yun has shrunk from fright altogether. Tian, who silently watched the fight, knows that in fact that technique is not a girl's technique. Tang Zheng simply used Kai energy to strengthen his legs, thereby making them stronger and, accordingly, faster. The same with his hands. Well, Yi Jingdang lost. The guy, it turns out, thinks well in battle. A few hours pass. The day is tending to night. The young man, who now has a large plaster stuck on his cheek, enters the apartment, quietly announcing that he has returned. At first he is puzzled by the fact that the lights are completely turned off, but then he finds his grandfather with his eyes. Zheng gets scared when he realizes that Tom has become ill. The old man, sitting on the floor, desperately clings to his shirt and tries to catch his breath, but it doesn't really work out. A little girl with medium-length hair and a sundress is ready to cry. She clings to a black woman's skirt while watching some people collect things. One takes off dresses, the other reaches for a stuffed panda. The girl begins to sob and tries to approach them, but the adult, whose skirt she was holding, blocks her way with his hand. The child vaguely sees all sorts of things scattered on the floor, sees people in black suits and glasses standing with boxes filled to the brim with something. A man in a strict classic suit is talking to one of them. At one point, he turns to the girl, his wrinkled face, his purple eyes express boundless sadness. Yi Jingdang wakes up in a cold sweat. She's in the medical room right now, although she doesn't really care. The girl sits up in bed confused and touches her head, feeling a little discomfort. Damn it, she dreamed about that old man again, it really bothers her. Only now does Yi Jingding notice Feng Yun sitting next to the bed. The guy is noticeably embarrassed, simultaneously peeling the apple from the peel, but he is glad that his sister has finally woken up. A girl without any aggression asks a plump man what she is doing in the medical room. He answers with a question whether she forgot that she lost to the newcomer, and then immediately enthusiastically tells how his brother carried Yi Jingdang here after the fight. She crumples the blanket in her palm. The girl's face darkens. She does not ask in a friendly way to repeat what he said. Feng Yun is finally scared when she asks when Tang Zheng managed to become his brother. Suddenly, a red phone with a picture of a frog starts ringing. Yi Jingding picks up the phone, asking Feng Zai how things are going, and in response receives indignant shouts. Does the girl really not care if her mother is alive or not? She's actually in the hospital right now, so let her hurry up. Yi Jingding just pushes the noisy phone away from his ear and makes a dissatisfied tusk. At the same time, Fan Shishi comes to Tang Zhen's house because he wants to know how he feels now. The door to the apartment is open, and the girl hesitantly enters, apologizing for the intrusion. She immediately notices a guy who is desperately calling Grandpa. Zheng, also noticing a classmate, frantically asks to call an ambulance. Seeing that Fang Shishi is being stupid, he unconsciously raises his voice, asking to do it as quickly as possible. She immediately comes to her senses, grabs the phone, dialing a number, after which the young man mentally asks his grandfather to be patient a little more. The ambulance finally picks up all three of them and rushes along the highway to the hospital with flashing lights and a siren on. One doctor attaches fixators to the old man's chest to collect coordinates. The second holds a dropper. The girl is worried about both her grandfather and Tang Zhen. He looks very depressed, although this is not surprising. The ambulance arrives at the hospital when it is already dusk. At the same moment, Yi Jingding leaves the ward with the words that she was right. Nothing terrible happened to Feng Zai. This is the most common cold. Do not worry. Suddenly, a group of doctors hurriedly carrying a gurney with an old man bursts into the corridor and loudly asks everyone present to give way. And they constantly repeat this. They rush past Yi Jingding. She draws attention to the fact that two guys, who, judging by their uniforms, are from her school, are running behind the gurney. Only now does the girl realize that one of them is Tang Zheng, who is very excited about something. A hand grabs her shoulder. Once the girl started talking about school, it means, according to the person, she is familiar with those two. Anyway, Yi Jingding, turning to a tall red-haired woman in a white fur coat, expresses doubts as he does not want to answer directly. At this time, being in the ward, the doctor wearily removes the mask from his face and reassures the young man that while the old man's life is not in danger, but his condition is unstable. Zheng asks what he wants to say by this. Fan Shishi also listens attentively. Then the doctor, picking up a tablet with data about the patient, explains that he has clearly had heart problems for a long time, which are associated with age, and the risk of surgery is too high. With each new word, the guy's eyes widen more and more. The doctor finishes off Tang Zhen by saying that he cannot guarantee the full recovery of an elderly person. Well, at least the old man will be hospitalized by the doctor's decision to monitor the condition. The man hands the student a tablet, asks him to sign, then go downstairs and pay the bill if there are no objections. Tang Zheng somewhat mechanically takes the papers from him, and this does not escape Shisha's attention. The girl starts briskly looking for a purse in her backpack, saying that she just has money with her. However, the young man stops her. He has bothered the girl again, but he will take care of the rest himself. She, smiling, objects that it does not give her any trouble if it is about Tang Zheng. That's just she did not expect the guy to start yelling at her. Did she not understand what he said to her? He doesn't need her help. Fan Shishi freezes in indecision, continuing to smile stupidly. The young man, calming down and lowering his tone to normal, admits that he does not know why she treats him so well, but he is still very grateful for everything. Perhaps it's because, according to Tang Zheng, wealthy people sometimes feel sorry for people like him, but he's had enough. In the end, the guy asks the girl to leave the room. Of course, she doesn't just leave. Quickly writing down her number on a piece of paper, she puts it on the bedside table and asks him to call if he needs something. The young man is silent in response, only carefully adjusts the grandfather's blanket. Shishi stares at Tom's back for a few more seconds and walks away, hanging his head. Tian appears out of nowhere and caustically comments that Zheng does not know how to handle girls. The guy calmly reprimands that the creature should not appear at such a time just to tease him. It's better to tell him if there is any way to save Grandpa. Exhaling heavily, the spirit again notices that the student's attitude to anything is really annoying, and therefore it is not surprising that no girl likes him. Zheng rudely demands that he shut up. Then Tian asks if he has ever heard of a longevity pill that can extend a person's life by 10 years. The young man is amazed at what he has heard. How can this be? He does not answer the question, but brings to the attention that the old man does not have long to live, so the magical creature can teach the young man to create this pill. Full of determination, Zheng, jumping up from his chair, offers to go and do it right away. The spirit asks not to hurry. The battle with Yi Jingdang was wonderful. He absorbed a lot of pure yin energy. But this is not enough, because to create a pill, the guy needs to find 3 Kai purification products and a heavenly flower. The student's face shows that he is listening intently, but does not understand anything. The round creature sedately explains that the heavenly flower usually grows on top of a cliff, and the old man's body can last another month or so. Therefore, if Zheng can improve soon, he will save Grandpa. Without thinking twice, the young man rushes out of the ward, reasoning on the move that there is a high mountain 2,000 meters high on the outskirts of Changhang. The city is just named after her. He'll probably be able to find the flower there. At the very least, Zheng should try. Maybe he will still have time. The spirit follows him on his heels and manages to irritably resent that he did not listen to him to the end. Night falls, the lights turn off in the wards. The old man is lying unconscious on the bed, and opposite him is another patient. Instead of sleeping, a guy with purple hair, whose head is bandaged, hides under a blanket. He calls a friend and demands to come to the hospital quickly and pick him up. It seems to him that a person with neurosis is lying here, talking to himself. A friend from the other end of the wire, who probably expected something like this, asks with displeasure if he is just trying to scare him. It's dark outside, even if the whole city is lit up. Yi Jingding is just about to get into the car when Tang Zheng flies past her. It takes her a couple of moments to make sure it's him. Turning to Feng Zai, the girl asks not to wait for her, she will go home later. The woman angrily shouts after her, is the little pot-bellied going to come back late again? But Yi Jingdang is already far away. A lone bus brings a young man to Changhang Mountain. He has only one thing on his mind. Don't let Grandpa worry, because he will definitely create that pill. Almost simultaneously with Zhen, a taxi drops off a girl a little further away. She still doesn't understand why the guy came here late at night. Starting to tremble, the girl notes for herself that here you can naturally die from the cold. Nevertheless, the young man goes into the forest, despite the warning sign that it is dangerous here, because entry is prohibited. Some representatives of the nocturnal fauna willy-nilly get in the way, but do not frighten and in no way stop Zhen. On the contrary, fireflies, albeit weakly, illuminate the path, as does the moon. The guy bravely climbs the mountains, descends into the lowlands, overcomes the thickets. Eventually, he reaches the highest point of Mount Changheng, a high cliff that drops steeply down. From here, the student has a picturesque view of the night city, although he is not interested in it. He just hopes to find that flower here. The spirit hastens to warn that the heavenly flower was a rarity 1,000 years ago. There is no guarantee that they will find it here and now. At this time, Yi Jingding is hiding behind the trees, intensely thinking that something is wrong here. Otherwise Tang Zheng would not have run so far. Suddenly, the girl's sensitive hearing catches the crunch of a branch behind. She turns around to check the situation, as she is abruptly attacked by some man, smiling rapaciously. He has long lilac hair, wears a black elastic suit, and his weapon is a blade attached to his wrist. The girl doesn't really understand what is happening, but she is thrown aside by Zhen. When she finally lands, she sees a deep bleeding scratch on her shoulder. However, the guy notices her and sincerely wonders why Yi Jingdang is here. Holding the wound with her hand, she awkwardly asks if he will believe her if she says that she was walking in the woods after dinner. Well, it's obvious to everyone that the girl is lying, but this pales before the fact that a fight is coming. A stranger aggressively cuts the first bush in half, approaching the guys. According to the man, as expected from the daughter of the Yi family, the schoolgirl very cleverly dodged. She demands to know who he is and why he attacked her. The stranger, madly smiling and flashing his eyes, answers only the last question. He attacked her because she is Yi Jingdang. The killer rushes to the girl. Tang Zheng is ready to rush to protect her, but the spirit stops her in time, asking her not to hurry. Tian reports that the man has improved 6 levels, so the guy simply cannot resist him now. The young man mentally repeats the figure he has heard. The spirit says correctly, if he hurries, he will lose. Moreover, Yi Jingding has the 4th level, and Jen has only the first. And, although cultivators are stronger than warriors, at the moment the difference in strength is still too great. On the other hand, if the young man leaves everything as it is, then the classmate is finished. Watching how she dodges the man's blows, the guy feverishly thinks about what he can do in this situation. And, without noticing it, persuades himself to think faster. Suddenly, Tang Zhen calls out to Yi Jingdeng and angrily asks if he is going to die here. At the same second, an abrasion appears on her cheek from an accurate blade strike. Opponents bounce in different directions. Bearing his mouth with a half-witted smile, the killer seems to confirm to himself that Jingdeng is definitely the daughter of the Yi family. He promises that if she is an obedient girl, he will kill her quickly and painlessly. But she unceremoniously refuses and advises not to dream in vain. Members of the Yi family never give up, even in the face of death. Unfortunately, her words are, in fact, meaningless. She missed the moment when the stranger shortened the distance between them so much that now the girl has no way to dodge the blade that looms in front of her pupil. It was too fast. Yi Jingding closes his eyes. Resigned to her fate, she silently says goodbye to Dad and Feng Zai. But the attack never reaches her. Tang Zhen, with a jacket wrapped around his arm, uses the heavenly hand, throwing the confused enemy back. The girl, seeing the young man's broad back, is no less amazed. He seriously declares that even though she is too noisy, she does not deserve to die. The killer is not particularly upset by this turn of events. He laughs because he was too focused on Yi Jingdeng and completely forgot that they are not alone here. Finally, the stranger arrogantly asks who the young man is. Meanwhile, somewhere in the city there is a two-story house in which only one window is lit. This is Fan Shishi's room. She is sitting at a table with a photo in her hands, which depicts little Shishi, Zhang and Fei at the graduation ceremony for the Mathematical Olympiad. The three of them are standing on a pedestal. Tang Zheng stands in the first place in confusion. Fan Shishi, smiling brightly, is on the second, and Kaio Fei, angrily looking at the winner, is on the third. A slight blush covers the girl's cheeks when she looks at the photo. How can she help the young man? He himself is talking to the killer at this time, even if the guy does not want to admit it, but Yi Jingdang is his classmate. She, of course, immediately begins to resent what the guy is saying at all, but the stranger, giggling, sarcastically admits that the children just made him laugh. In fact, he does not care deeply whether they are classmates or friends, none of them will survive. The man rushes towards the duo again, swinging his blade. Zheng closes with a wrapped hand, which amuses the man. Does he seriously think that this will be able to stop his attack? 3 cuts in the shape of a triangle, the sweaters were gone. The man anticipates how he deals with those two, and looks through the scraps of fabric. But to his great surprise, the guys were not there. But a second later, Jingdang and Zheng synchronously attack the killer from the rear. The first uses martial arts, the second uses the heavenly hand. There is a powerful explosion. Let's be honest, this attack was planned in advance. When the young man defended his classmate for the first time, he quietly asked if she could still fight, and if so, let her listen to his plan. The guy confidently stated that they have a chance to defeat the enemy. His words somewhat confused the girl, but she obviously agreed. Now Yi Jingdeng, standing shoulder to shoulder with Zhen, solemnly announces that the students from the 7th grade are quite smart. Yi Jingdeng complacently declares that although the man's level is higher than hers, but he will not be able to kill her so easily. The next moment, she enters her repertoire again. That is, she starts angrily shouting at Tang Zhen, whether he is listening to her at all, while the guy, thoughtfully, looks at the place of the explosion. Tian notices that the bro's pot cooks well, while the young man says out loud that the battle is not over yet. The girl looks at him in bewilderment, then at the place that so attracted the attention of a classmate. The smoke has not completely dissipated yet, but the guys already hear the mocking voice of the killer. He did not expect that there would be another warrior here. According to him, it is becoming more and more interesting, since one has the 4th level, and the other uses the heavenly hand technique. The man thinks it's very stupid to think that the two of them can defeat him. He starts attacking again. The trajectory of its movement is like a broken line, which seems to be traceable. However, it comes as a surprise to both the young man and Yi Jingding that the killer appears right in front of their noses in the blink of an eye. The stranger, having something in mind, smiles dangerously. None of the guys have time to understand anything, as he grabs Zhen by the throat and pierces through his stomach with his blade. And the man warned that they would both die, so let them get his devil's blow. The earth is gradually sprinkled. The girl stares blankly at the weapon that entered the classmate for a few seconds. When the realization finally reaches Yi Jingdang, she is horrified, clings to the man's hand with which he grabbed the guy by the neck, and desperately screams if she is his target. The killer just giggles in response. Then the girl even more insistently demands to remove her hand from Tang Zhen. Oddly enough, her words have an effect on the stranger. He throws the exhausted guy aside, showing that he is no longer interested in him. Only now he is completely switching all his attention to Yi Jingdang, and his request not to worry about the fact that they have already lost does not inspire much hope, considering how he smiles. Quickly realizing what he wants, the girl increases the distance between them, bouncing a couple of meters back, closer to the cliff. She is focused on her opponent again, and for good reason. The killer is rushing towards her with lightning speed. Fortunately, Yi Jingdang notices the blade thrust forward at the last moment, so he successfully deflects. Because of this, the man almost falls, but deftly grabs the schoolgirl by the leg and prepares to throw her into the thicket. However, before that, smiling arrogantly, he kindly points out that if they wanted to attack him, they should have done it earlier. So, he throws Yi Jingdang into the thicket of the forest. While she is flying, touching every tree, collecting branches with leaves and hiding from them with her hands, the killer catches up with the girl, and this makes her frown. He puts the blade forward. The stranger is ready to repeat with what he did with the guy. But something goes wrong. Yi Jingdang lands, unharmed, and then sees bright sparks gathering into bright ribbons. It is they who hold the weapon of the dumbfounded stranger. He turns back in anger. This is the work of Tang Zhen, who stands and covers his pierced stomach in an attempt to somehow stop the bleeding. The girl is genuinely shocked, because he is seriously injured. You can say he can barely stand on his feet, but at the same time uses the heavenly hand. That's just an unusual heavenly hand, as energy flows surround the entire body of the young man, and, lengthening, detain the enemy. Zheng is now putting his palm forward to use an improved martial art called Heavenly Hand Transformation. A clot of bright energy gathers in his palm, and he abruptly squeezes it, like the strings of a puppeteer. The streams on the killer's hand respectively squeeze his blade, but with such force that it literally falls apart into pieces. The killer does not catch up with what has just happened to his weapon. Looking at the empty hand, the knife just suddenly disappeared. In any case, he quickly adapts to the current situation, starting to get angry at the guy. As soon as the stranger turns to him, he immediately gets a heavenly hand on his face. However, this does not weaken him much. He grabs Tang Zhen by the hand, saying that he has already accepted defeat, and, roughly grabbing his head, forcefully slams the young man's face into the ground. Yi Jingdang is so confused that she is speechless. The next moment, the classmate jumps to his feet again, wants to hit the man, but he manages to dodge. A frank one-goal game begins. The killer, enraged, hits the young man in the wounded place and in no way limits himself to this, continuing to attack either with his foot on the jaw, then with his hand on the face, or somehow else. When Tang Zheng finally loses consciousness, Yi Jingding regains consciousness and is exposed to another blow. The fist hits her in the face, leaving a bruise. The girl demands the man not to forget that his goal is her. He only laughs at her antics, which, in his opinion, is stupid. The schoolgirl herself is in a hurry to die. Suddenly the wind rises, the whirring of helicopter blades is heard. The cabin door is open, and two people are standing on its edge, a man and a woman. The killer and Yi Jingding raise their heads at the same time, but the second one also opens her mouth in surprise. Angry man and woman, shouting over the helicopter, threaten in unison that the stranger should not dare to harm their daughter, otherwise they will never forgive him. Only now does the girl realize that it's Dad and Feng Zai who have come for her. The killer recognizes them, too. Yi Tianlei, Feng Zai, Yi Jingding are all here now. In the end, the helicopter descends to the ground. The newcomers get off it and approach the two. The girl asks skeptically how they knew she was here. Her dad tells in detail how everything happened. Yi Jingding left her phone in the car. Her mom went to pick her up to give it to her, and when she saw her daughter climbing the mountain, she called him and told him to come here. And he also exaggerates how exactly the dialogue took place. A woman called Yi Tianlei and almost screamed into the phone that his daughter ran up the mountain and did not take her phone with her. So he urgently needs to come. She will send him the coordinates. Feng Zai also complains that the girl is getting more and more naughty. In any case, this is not new to Yi Jingdang. Suddenly, the killer grabs her by the neck, declaring that now is not the time for family chatter. Maybe he looks unperturbed, but he nervously thinks to himself that, whether it's Yi Tianlei or Feng Zai, even with one of them, he will not be able to cope with his abilities. The stranger is sure that the guy is to blame for everything, because he forced him to spend so much time on a useless fight. The killer clearly understands that he simply needs to escape from here. Suddenly he realizes that a middle-aged man in a classic suit has disappeared somewhere. His eyes widen in amazement when he sees an empty seat next to a woman. From the side, the question sounds where he is looking. The stranger's eyes completely pop out of their sockets when he notices Tianlei a centimeter away. Folding his hands with a special technique, the man sends his opponent into a long flight with one blow of his elbow. Trees break under the pressure of the body until it crashes into one particularly hard tree, although the stranger doesn't care anymore. He lost consciousness long before that. Tianlei, frowning, displeased, dusts off his hands, then turns to his daughter. Jingding decides to calmly point out that she could handle such a brat herself. Only she doesn't notice how the woman behind her angrily raises her hand, after which she punches the back of the girl's head with her fist. A heated argument ensues between them. The daughter shouts that she is Feng Zai's child, so why does she beat her every time? The woman also shouts that she always makes her worry. Then the girl, still screaming, asks how such a mother can have a child at all, which greatly angers the woman, who now shouts that she is not her mother and let the girl go to the one she likes. That woman will be her mother. Now Jingding irritably recalls that because of poor academic performance, Feng Zai slapped her every time, and she angrily replies that she needed punishment, otherwise how else would she encourage her daughter to study? Here the head of the family intervenes in the conflict, asking the mother and daughter to stop making noise and confusion. Both pay all their attention to him, making eyes at him, calling him dear or daddy. They synchronously ask to tell one of them that it's not her fault. This situation takes Tianlei by surprise, even a little frightening. In general, he can't calm them down. On the contrary, they only get angrier. The girl shouts that Feng Zai does not cheat, and the woman angrily declares that her daughter always pretends to be nice to her father. Here a man catches the eye of a guy lying motionless. He perplexedly asks Yijing who it is, and states that the young man is seriously injured. Only at this moment does the girl remember poor Tang Zheng. The helicopter rises into the air. Feng Zai slyly asks his daughter if Tang Zheng is her boyfriend, which makes her blush. Jingding gets angry and hastily replies that this is not the case. After some time, the young man is brought to the place and placed in a luxurious white bed, next to which there is now an IV drip. In fact, he is not completely unconscious. The guy is in the astral. In front of him stands his dial of fate, according to which Tian determines that Zheng will not live to be 20 if he does not meet a person with pure yin energy, like Jingdang. He gloomily mutters words about pure yin, and then wakes up. The first thing the young man sees in front of him is a classmate and doctors. The girl is sitting on a chair, picking at her ear with her finger, and asks the doctor what the guy is babbling about. The doctor can't say for sure. Maybe something about lips. Zheng weakly turns his head in their direction, and the girl, noticing this, exclaims joyfully that he has woken up. She leans on the bed, which makes the classmate very scared. After recovering a little, he remembers how Jingdang looked in a dream, believing that the image of a small pink dog suits her better. The spirit retorts in response that Zheng fainted, and the girl's parents saved him, although they could have left him to die. For once, a young man has the opportunity to assess the situation. Expensive vases on the table, a gorgeous view of the city, a white spacious room, and many doctors who are asked to leave. Jingding childishly begs Zhen to tell who taught him martial arts, but he unceremoniously refuses to tell her anything. At this moment, the butler comes up and announces to Mr. Tang Zhen that clean clothes have been brought for him. The girl does not let up, asking what the guy was doing on Chengheng, but he only declares that he is going to change clothes, so it's time for her to go out. Jingding goes into a shout, demanding to answer her question first, and then she will leave. They sit in silence for a while, glaring at each other. Tang Zheng decides to take extreme measures. He takes off his blanket, letting the girl see white shorts, the only piece of clothing he is currently wearing. She shyly covers her eyes with her hands, screams that the guy is a pervert, and runs away, slamming the door loudly. While he is putting on his shirt, the magical creature, smiling contentedly, teases him, also calling him a pervert. He gets it accordingly, namely, crashes his face into the glass, and not without the help of Zhen. Now, dressed and well-groomed, the student leaves the room and meets Jingdang standing in the corridor. She informs him that her parents want to see a classmate. Naturally, he strains, but, exhaling, calmly asks where to go. After a while, he comes to a sparkling hall, furnished with expensive furniture. The first one he comes across is Feng Zai, who gently takes Tang Zhen by the hands, smiling, admits that he is very cute, and then thanks him for saving his daughter. The girl coldly mutters that he didn't really save her, but no one pays attention to it. The woman offers Zhen to go and sit down. She will bring them something to drink. Now it's the turn of the head of the family. He is sitting on the sofa with his hands folded in a lock and his chin resting on them. There is an untouched tea in front of him. Yi Tianlei turns to the newcomer with the question whether his name is really Tang Zhen. He confirms. Suddenly, the man says that he has conducted some kind of investigation and declares the following. The young man has never studied martial arts. He is confused and does not yet know how to get out of this situation. The head of the family at this time, making a suspicious face, continues to press. The young man and his daughter resisted the 6th-level martial arts master, and the man hopes that Zhang will be able to explain how this became possible. Yi Jingdang, confused and displeased at the same time, turns to her father while the spirit notices, giggling, that the boy has big problems. At this moment, the girl is reproaching her father for how he can do this to a guy who is her classmate, and who saved her, only she again does not notice how her mother is frowning behind her. The young man understands perfectly well that he still needs a classmate to survive, which means that he definitely needs to answer something. So, Tang Zheng decides to tell Yi Tianlei everything, as the father of a classmate. As the man said, he had never studied martial arts before, but recently asked to be apprenticed to a master. The student wants to continue, but the whole family is shocked and repeats the word recently. Seizing him by the hand, Yi Jingdang asks if he is a monster. In such a short time, it is impossible to advance so far. Feng Zai asks Zhen with a smile if he could introduce them to his teacher, as she really wants to thank him. Glancing at the invisible Tian, the guy allegedly admits that his tomato-like master is not very convincing. The spirit irritably asks the boy what is wrong. It's good that Zheng manages to suppress a laugh and no one notices. Nevertheless, he tells the family with a smile that the teacher is free, like wild cranes, and wanders around the world all the time, because at the moment the young man does not know his location. This story, invented in a few seconds, amazes the magical creature. Since the world was born at the beginning of chaos, the heavenly Tao has appeared. It controlled the laws of heaven and earth and also changed everything. Under the rule of the heavenly Tao, the world has gone through 2 great cycles. During the first great cycle, thousands of people painstakingly trained and cultivated to reach the realm beyond the heavenly Tao. However, people were too greedy. Not only did they steal the spiritual roots of heaven and earth, they even tried to claim to be representatives of the heavenly Tao. From this, the heavens were awakened by the greed of the world and disappointed in everything that exists. And in the end, the heavens destroyed all beings. During the second great cycle, the 3 worlds, heavenly, human and earthly, were divided into regions and were no longer the same. The west was controlled by the gods, and the east was ruled by the immortals. The earthly world was deserted and quickly turned into a wasteland. The pile of bones reached the height of mountains, and the souls of criminals turned into ghosts. The human world is somewhere between the mighty kingdom of heaven and the kingdom of earth, where the weak fall into the cycle of reincarnation. However, the strongest representatives of the first great cycle were not completely destroyed. Some of them have been reborn into humans and are hiding to this day. Some of the dead came back to life and also hid somewhere. But they all have the same goal, to enter the path of fate and challenge the heavenly Tao. After awakening, the heavenly Tao became very angry and unleashed a mighty thunder. For the second time, the planet was already destroyed. And now the world has entered the third great cycle. The young man, waving away, asks the flying ball to finish this story. From this narration, the guy realized that the former heavenly Tao had left the world and fled, and now he is a new heavenly Tao. The ball responds positively to this assumption. The young man jumps off a small mountain and continues the conversation with the magic ball. The guy is reborn for the first time, and he has already been given such a high status. Shar replies that this guy was chosen by the system, and now he is a heavenly Tao that has unlimited power in this world. 2 men were climbing the mountain, and one of them watched the young man talking to himself. This ball is not seen by ordinary people. The guy, meanwhile, wonders why the previous heavenly Tao used only force to solve all the problems. After all, force cannot solve all problems, it can only help against enemies. Brother Zun once said that the strong use force against the stronger, and the weak use force against the weaker. But this young man is not a former heavenly Tao, and he would never have made such a low-grade mistake. While Tao was talking about the former heavenly Tao, a huge dragon flew out of the forest. His eyes were filled with rage, their red color spoke of it. The frightened people began to run away in different directions, and the young man continued to stand calmly and talk about the rank of the dragon. While the monster was preparing to attack Tao, the young man released a light flash from his little finger, which flew to the neighboring mountain and provoked an explosion. And then a hole appeared in the mountain. The dragon, turning at the sound of the explosion, saw what this guy was capable of and hurried away from there. Satisfied with his work, the young man says that even the reverse rank of the Heavenly King cannot block 3 of his blows. He also added that this dragon is very smart. The ball reappeared near the guy and reminded him of his words that the strong use force only against the strong. The guy explained that he just scared the dragon. Char clarified about the use of force against opponents. Then the young man replied that he would not use force as long as negotiations were possible, and the world would not be destroyed for the 3rd time. But his peace-loving Chinese blood could not promise anything. The guy got here less than an hour ago, and he doesn't know anything about this world yet. He is not even familiar with the situation in this world. He thinks about whether he will be able to become a good heavenly Tao. Therefore, the first place in which he will stay, the young man chose a small town. Heavenly Tao is advancing towards the gates of Freedom City. Traffickers enter the city. They drive carts in which fairies sit. They discuss a good hunt and a catch for which they can make a big profit. Fairies are in great demand among the nobility here. One of the merchants notices the young man and asks if he needs slaves. He offers to buy any slave he likes for 10 gold coins. These fairies are the newest of the captured, ranging from prisoners of war to innocent girls from the village. In addition, there are children who could be raised from an early age. Tao looks through the hearts of the fairies sitting in the carriage and sees that their hearts look almost like dead. The seller again turns attention to himself and says that he has an extremely rare product. They move to the next wagon, and the man removes the cloth from it, which protected the creature from human eyes and light. In the cart there is an elf girl with long ears. There are abrasions on her legs and arms, and her expression is exhausted. The girl holds onto the metal grate with both hands, and sadness and a request for help are visible in her eyes. The merchant says that representatives of the elven race are found only on the western continent. You can get this elf for only 1,000 gold coins. Tao, after listening to his speech, silently turns around and leaves. The man calls him a poor man after him. Moving away from the traders, the young man says that human trafficking is worse than a feudal state. Then Char asks why Tao didn't free the slaves. The guy replies that there would be no point in this. The slavers would just start kidnapping even more, and this would not solve the problem in any way. Tao points his finger at a shop with several hundred slaves, and there are such shops all over the continent. Char replies that the young man is a heavenly Tao. If he wishes, all the slaves in the world will be freed, and all the slavers in the world will die, and all the chambers of commerce will go bankrupt. The young man does not see any sense in this action, because then another chamber will rise, which will fill the commercial void and begin a new wave of slave hunting. Unlike his predecessor, the guy thinks to solve the problem, they have to sort out the main root of the problem itself. Tao walks into this shop and is greeted by a smiling man offering various goods. All these slaves are finished products that have been well trained in their ward and are guaranteed not to escape. If one of the slaves dares to escape, the man promises to compensate everything tenfold. Then the young man decides to ask, if he releases the slaves himself, will they escape? The man, taking the words of the gentleman for a joke, replies that if he buys them and lets them go, they will not leave him anyway. Tao points to one of the slaves and asks to talk to her. The man agrees and says that if the young man is not satisfied with these slaves, then he will be able to go to the VIP room and choose others. The guy approaches the girl and asks if she wants freedom. She lowers her head down, and then Tao decides to ask if she has a lover. The slave did not expect to hear this, and the young man comes closer to the glass and decides to ask another question. He wonders if this girl wants to be a free person or remain a slave. She still answers the question, and says that she just wants to be a slave to her master. After receiving the answer, Tao asks to take him to the VIP room. The man leaves to prepare a room for his client. Having placed the kettle and treats on the table, the owner of the shop leaves, leaving the guy alone. A store employee looks out from behind the door and asks the gentleman to wait. He says that he needs to tell someone to bring exclusive VIP items to the young man. The employee leaves, leaving the young man alone. As soon as the door is closed, the guy opens the system and the protocol of the rules is ready to work. After the young man saw human trafficking, he made a firm decision. The abolition of slavery is his first task as a heavenly Tao. The system asks you to describe the rule that the heavenly Tao wants to add. The young man announces a rule. Everyone below the 5th rank and trying to trade people will see a dark silhouette that will begin to seem many times more powerful than the person himself. And when the merchant plans to commit a crime, he will be issued a warning. The system asks the question why the young man chose people below the 5th rank. Heavenly Tao explained that those above the 5th rank are immortals. They will not want to trade people and lose their authority. The young man adds that if the warning goes unheeded and the merchant does not change his mind, then the silhouette will start attacking until the person changes his mind, or until he dies. The process of developing rules begins, and the system asks for a definition. Heavenly Dao starts typing on the computer, an act of coercion, when a creature is exposed to the arena of sales, with the help of threats, for the purpose of profit, exchange of goods, in return for restricting actions by humanoid creatures. But if the slave became such voluntarily, then there is no problem. The rules are drawn up and the system asks if the Heavenly Dao is ready to make a preview. The young man clicks on yes. An employee of the shop leads the slaves to the VIP room and light rays flash before the eyes of the girls and the guy, and their faces freeze, and their eyes widen. This light falls on the whole city, which indicates that the rule has come into effect. The door to the room opens, and the young man sees a worker who keeps slaves on chains. He says that he has prepared 10 of the best goods for the gentleman. Not having had time to finish talking about a discount for the gentleman, an intimidating silhouette appears in front of the employee. The guy jumps away from the shadow in horror and asks the gentleman if he sees the same thing. The young man responds positively and asks if their ward does not meet its clients in this way. The employee's voice breaks into a scream, and he says that they are not doing it that way. Realizing that the rule is activated, the young man gets up from the sofa, takes a mug in his hand, and begins to observe what is happening. The guy points at the wall, and turning around, everyone present is shocked. A man named Andrew flies out of the wall. In his hand is a huge sword, and his face and body are covered with wounds and abrasions. Heavenly Dao asks who this man is, and the shop worker tells him that this is one of the captains of the security service of their Chamber of Commerce, a strong warrior of the second category. Seeing a silhouette that looked like him, Andrew asks the client to leave the room. He is afraid that he will not be able to guarantee the safety of the gentleman. The young man assures the man not to worry, because in this world no one can kill him. Then the captain, full of determination, goes into battle with the silhouette. The girls are scared of what's going on. Destruction reigns around, fights. The silhouette strikes at Andrew and cuts his sword. When the captain realized that there was no point in fighting anymore, he asked the shadow to stop. The silhouette suddenly turns around and leaves the captain alone. The shadow approaches the slaves who were sitting on the floor and trembling with fear. He raises his sword and cuts the chains on the hands and feet of the girls. When the worker and the captain are frozen in misunderstanding, Tao approaches Andrew and explains that this dark silhouette did not intend to kill him, but only wanted to save those slaves. When the rule came into effect, chaos began to reign everywhere. One of the merchants stands on the balcony of his shop and tells the workers not to give up and fight to the last. Noticing that his goods are running away, he shouts for them to be returned. After these words, a dark silhouette appears behind the man's back. The shadow strikes, and the man falls down, breaking the wooden railing of the mezzanine with his body. He falls at the feet of the elf. Seeing the merchant, the girl hurries to escape from this room as soon as possible. A heavenly Tao appears near a man dreaming about his money. He looks up at the departing girl and wishes her a good return home. When the young man noticed the speed of the elf, a girl named Kingshan appeared behind him. She knelt down in front of her master. The girl is glad that she has finally found a young man. Kingshan and the gentleman went to the tea shop, which was located in the city. The young man brings a cup of tea to his mouth and before drinking it, blows on the tea in an attempt to cool it down. He reminds the girl of his request. The guy asked her not to follow him. Kingshan exclaims that she has sworn to follow her master everywhere. The subordinate asks the master to let her walk side by side with him. After receiving a negative answer, Kingshan falls to her knees and asks not to leave her. The girl asks what's wrong with her, and having asked this question, it says that she can become what her master wants her to be. Rising from the table, the young man says that he is not leaving her, but she has become too attached. He also adds that the girl does not know how to control herself at all. If someone starts bothering her, she will just smash everything around. When Kingshan rushes into the arms of the master, he tries to push her away, and says that if the girl stays with him, she will one day attack him in a dark night in the room. A ball appears near the young man and says that Kingshan will not do so. This is the most she is capable of. The young man decided to take pity on the girl and tells her that she can follow him, but the subordinate should behave calmly and not kneel. Her behavior attracts too much attention. Kingshan agrees with every word, and she thinks that since the master did not drive her away, then there is a separate place for the girl in his heart. Tao tells Shar that he wants to end slavery, but suddenly got his own slave. Shar replies that it would be more logical to compare her with a dog. The young man remembered that the previous Tao had 5 incarnations, and he asks if there is a similar one here. The ball assures the guy that not all incarnations of heaven are girls. Among the 5 incarnations of heaven, only Kingshin and Yukishin are girls, and Hun, Dunshin, and Huanshin are men. In the end, the balloon says that they treat the young man loyally. The guy decides to ask Kingshin about the rebels, how she treats them. The girl's expression becomes serious, and she says that everyone who opposes the sky is greedy and rude people. Whether it's the first or second worlds, all they do is kill each other out of greed. Tao grins and says that at the beginning of the second cycle, the survivors of the first died before the forces of the 3 worlds were restored. And luring spiritual forces into your own little world is tantamount to killing chickens. That is why the master should destroy everyone, the young man adds. Kingshin says that the gods are dead, the demons are destroyed, the centuries are constantly replacing each other, and the sky is eternal. The girl also says that her master is the eternal ruler of the 3 worlds. But the young man denies her words, saying that despite the invincibility of the heavenly Tao, it is not yet certain that something more powerful than him cannot appear. After finishing the dialogue, Tao gets up from the table and says that it's time for them to go. Going outside, the young man opens the system window and the voice says that the implementation of the new rule is successful. Then the girl decides to ask the gentleman a question. It is obvious that the Tao can grant untold wealth to everyone and get rid of the oppression of a particular race, for which then the master needed to introduce this rule with silhouettes. The young man replies that the meaning of the existence of the heavenly Tao is to maintain a certain order and balance, or actions are aimed at eliminating the imbalance, and not at doing well for everyone. It is the duty of the heavenly Tao to open new paths of development for humanity. The guy is capable of what others can do, but he has the courage to do what others are not capable of. This is the way of the heavenly Tao. If there is white in the world, then there should be black, but the predominance of one thing is undesirable. Turning his head, the young man decides to show by example how important the right balance of good and bad is. In order for his subordinate not to do anything, he made her invisible. Not far from the young man there was a girl who was giving alms. While she was busy talking to a beggar, a man behind her was trying to pull a bag of money out of the girl's pocket. Heavenly Tao called out to the girl and told her to be careful while she was giving alms. The girl's gaze is filled with rage, and she turns to the thief. After making sure that a man is really standing behind her, she kicks him in the stomach and the thief flies away. Tao praises the girl's blow, and she in turn thanks him. They introduce themselves to each other. This girl is a warrior and her name is AI. The young man, in turn, says that he is a heavenly Tao and they shake hands. Thanking heavenly Tao again, AI says that she needs to finish something, so she turns around and is about to leave. But the young man stops her. He asks the AI warrior to fulfill his request, because the girl is an adventurer. Tao throws a bag of money into the girl's hands and tells her that he is going to go to the western continent. He will be bored on the road, so the young man needs company. Seeing such a generous reward, AI agrees without a doubt. Tao still hasn't made Kingshin visible, so the girl asks if she can talk to her master. The young man tells her to just obey. When the time comes, he will let her out himself. The team stops in the City of Freedom. When the preparation was completed, AI waves his hands to Tao and says that the crew is ready. She apologizes to the gentleman for taking a lot of time to prepare and says that they should not attract much attention, so this crew is the best fit. After the warrior finished explaining, she decided to introduce the young man to her friends with whom she travels. A middle-level Taoist, Ahai, the young man puts his fist to his open hand and introduces himself by name. Near the young man is a nun at an early stage, Mary. After completing the acquaintance, the team sets off. The nun is sitting opposite the heavenly Tao and the young man asks Mary if she is from the Holy Sea of Light. Ahai, who was driving the cart, tells heavenly Tao that few people are spending money for the sake of simple communication now, and asks why the master does not have a guard. The young man replies that the guards will not be stronger than him. Warrior AI adds that Lord Heavenly Tao is very strong, so he does not need protection. Ahai grins and says that he barely feels the aura of the master. Because of this it is difficult to say whether he is here for sure. Hearing these words, the master's body begins to emit a purple glow. It pours out of the crew and descends into the underworld. The aura reaches the girl who was sitting on her knees, and her hands were tied with chains to a tree. As soon as the violet glow appeared in the underworld, the girl immediately felt the aura of her master. The AI warrior suddenly looks out of the carriage window and sees a path that was strewn with people. Someone was lying in tents, someone was sitting on the ground. Everyone who was in the cart is wondering who these people are. Heavenly Tao replies that they must be slaves from Freedom City who were saved thanks to the dark silhouettes. Mary asks why they ran away from the city, because it's dangerous. AI replies that this happened because the silhouettes banned the slave trade, so these people were left without a roof over their heads. AI says that it is difficult for him to imagine the number of people who died at the hands of dark silhouettes. Mary replies, despite the fact that the followers of the Holy See are against the slave trade, the methods of dark silhouettes are very radical. But AI does not agree with Mary's opinion. She believes that silhouettes are doing the right thing. After listening to different opinions, Heavenly Tao decides to ask if the dark silhouettes are right. The girls are in no hurry to answer, and Ahai, on the contrary, decides to express his point of view. He says that the silhouettes are doing the right thing. Compared to the suffering of the slaves, the behavior of the silhouettes does not seem to be something bad. Although the slaves lost the castle, they gained freedom and a future. The AI warrior jumps out and exclaims that now the slaves have the right to do what they want. Mary notices that sold slaves have a hard time. The girl puts her hands in a lock and asks the God of Light to save their souls. Seeing the girl praying, Heavenly Tao asks what is the meaning of these prayers. The nun does not understand what the young man is talking about. He, in turn, says that the God of Light will not be able to save so many people. The girl extremely disagrees with the words of the guy, so she expresses her indignation that the God of Light is a merciful goddess who sooner or later will help everyone in need. The young man again objects and says that she will not help anyone. AI gets up to try to prevent a conflict. She tells Mary that the Heavenly Tao was joking, and she tells the young man that the clergy are very devoted to their faith, so it's better not to argue. Tao turns his head to the still invisible Kingshan, and the thought flashes through his mind that the God of Light really can't help anyone. Ahai laughs to soften the situation and says that the gentleman went a little too far with the statements. Then the young man asks if they really believe that God will help everyone. Ahai laughs again and says that instead of believing in such a thing, it's better to learn a few spells in order to protect yourself. AI also enters into the conversation and says that it is best to pray for others, not for yourself. They don't think about relying on the gods when they ensure their own safety. They have to fight for peace on their own. The Heavenly Tao says that the thoughts of people from the Eastern continent deserve respect. Mary, in turn, asks to explain the fact that people on the Eastern continent are still sacrificed for the sake of rain. Hearing about this, the young man tells Ahai that since he is a Taoist, isn't there a spell that can cause rain? Ahai smiles in response and says that a person of the 5th rank cannot cause rain, let alone a downpour. Then the Heavenly Tao says that a Taoist of the 3rd rank can create ice talismans, launch them to the clouds, moisten the clouds, and thereby accelerate the pouring of rains. Ahai doesn't understand what the young man is talking about, and the girls start laughing. AI, through laughter, says that rain can't go if the clouds are frozen. Kingshan becomes enraged and is about to enter into an argument with the girls, but Heavenly Tao blocks her way, putting his hand in front of her chest. He asks the girl to calm down, because it's useless to talk to people who don't even know the basics of physics. Noticing that this time Kingshan calmed down too quickly, the young man turns to the girl. He notices where his hand is and makes a decision. The guy logs into the system and selects the Protect from Kingshan item. When the sun has set over the horizon, the company decides to stop for the night. Mary fed the horses, and AI brought firewood for the fire. Ahai utters a spell and fire flies out of his hands, which the young man directs to dry branches. After making a fire, Ahai says that it is dangerous to walk at night, so the 3 of them will take turns on duty so that the gentleman can sleep peacefully. The young man agrees and opens the system to familiarize himself with the terrain. There are 3 combat rank monsters nearby. Besides, there are several low-level ones, so it won't be so difficult to destroy the team. When Heavenly Tao finishes, Kingshan comes up to him and says that there is a group of monsters in the southwest of the west. The girl asks what to do with them. The young man spreads out a sleeping bag, and covering himself with a blanket, says that nothing needs to be done. Tao tells the girl to just stand by while he sleeps. The girl wishes the gentleman good night, and in response, a wooden sign flies into her face, on which it says no night approaches. In the middle of the night, a conversation took place between AI and Ahai, who woke up the Heavenly Tao. The couple was standing on the cliff of the mountain and the girl announced her pregnancy. After this joyful news, the young man embraced AI. But before he has time to rejoice, the guy starts shouting to the others to wake up. Ahai was scared of something, so AI turned around to find out what had happened. At the bottom she saw a bright green light. Skeletons of people and animals began to appear from there. It was an undead squad. The heavenly Tao wakes up and asks the ball about the main functions of the world, for example, such as the 6 reincarnations. The balloon responds that these functions exist, but there was a breakdown. The young man begins to get angry and takes the words of the ball for a joke, because there must be an explanation for the fact that reincarnation was violated. Shar explains that at the beginning of the first great cycle, the predecessor of the heavenly Tao created reincarnation in order to somehow balance yin and yang, using part of his powers. At the end of the first great cycle, reincarnation was in the hands of demons. Then Tao had a question why it was impossible to embody all this normally. The balloon continues the story that in fact, in the beginning everything worked out, and the first world wall was put up to balance everything. But the influx of mixed energy has led to incalculable casualties. The young man partly understands the former heavenly Tao. It is true that the problem cannot be solved by force, but it is possible to deal with the enemy. A rider on a horse approaches the team. His eyes were glowing green, and there were numerous cracks on his skull. The rider called people. AI was scared that he was talking. A nun approaches the heavenly Tao and says that there is a possibility that they will die today. After all, they are unlikely to withstand necromancers and death knights of the 3rd rank, as well as countless undead soldiers. AI says that they will all die if Lord Heavenly Tao is not stronger than them all. Marie, desperate, falling to the ground and folding her hands in a lock, begins to pray. Everyone was very scared, so the heavenly Tao approaches the undead and asks why they came here. Without receiving an answer, a bright blue glow began to surround the young man, which meant that the heavenly Tao was ready to fight the undead. Surrounded by blue light, the heavenly Tao summons the undead to battle. Countless skeletons are running to attack. Their bodies are pierced by the force and they crumble. Creatures devoid of any intelligence will always move blindly because of their instincts. Suddenly, Kingshan flies up to the young man to deal with the monsters, but the girl does not have time to attack. The rider swings his sword and several skeletons crumble into small pieces. In an intimidating voice, he says that the young man is so strong that he cannot attack. Heavenly Tao grins and starts clapping his hands. He says that the rider acted wisely, because he is different from other representatives of his species. After discovering a danger that could easily destroy his ethnic group, he killed all his subordinates without hesitation. Shar noticed that this was not murder, since they had already parted with their lives for a very long time. The young man waved off, saying that it was necessary to restore reincarnation as soon as possible. Noticing the command of the heavenly Tao, the rider decides to kill the weak. After receiving the order, the skeletons begin attacking Mary, Ahaya and Ai. The young man, using a spell, tries to fight them with fire, and the girl strikes at the skeletons. Seeing this, Heavenly Tao decided that he had hired them to chat with him. Before the team completes their task, no one can harm them. The young man hits the ground with his foot, and a blue light passes through it, which causes numerous cracks and fractures in the ground. Skeletons begin to fall into the pit, and with them the main rider. When it's over and the undead have disappeared, a ball appears and reminds Tao of his own words about not threatening others. The young man grins and says that the problem cannot be solved by force, but it is possible to deal with the enemy. Tao and Shar finish their dialogue, and the young man turns to someone, telling him not to hide, because he was behind what was happening. A necromancer girl appears from under a pile of bones. She bows and apologizes for ruining the team's journey. The young man approaches the girl and tells her that he is not such a cruel person. Besides, no one owns this land, so anyone can be here. The necromancer thanks Tao for understanding, and tells the surviving skeletons to bow. The undead kneel down, and the team walks along the line of skeletons. Ahai says that he did not expect that one day the undead of the 3rd rank would bow to him like this. It seems to Ai that everything that is happening is a dream. The nun doesn't agree with Tao's choice, so she stops and shouts at him that he can't just leave like that. Mary believes that if you let the undead go, they will kill a lot of people. The young man turns to the girl and asks what actions she expects from him. Mary's voice breaks into a scream. She tells Tao that since he is strong, he should have killed all the undead. In her opinion, the master should eliminate their very existence. In this case, justice will be restored, and Lord Heavenly Tao will become a hero and savior. Tao pushes the girl away from him and asks her why the weak should not exist. He does not believe that all the words that Mary has just uttered are the teachings of the God of Light. The girl doesn't understand what the guy is talking about. Tao continues and says that from the point of view of the God of Light, the soul is just an insignificant being. The fact that they are different does not make them bad at all. Everyone should be equal, regardless of faith and race. At the end of his speech, Tao asks Mary if she starts killing everyone who is weaker, will it be considered the right way, worthy of a nun? The girl lowers her head and tears roll down her face. AI decides to ask Tao if he is familiar with the first generation of the God of Light. The young man turns to the girl and replies that he cannot know her. The first generation God of Light did not even have the proper qualifications, which is why Tao is not familiar with her. Forgetting about the conversation about the God of Light, AI bows to Tao and hands him a bag of money. The girl thanks the young man for saving her, but the heavenly Tao refuses money. He was happy to chat with them. Besides, the guy now had a new task. Tao opens the system and a new one called religious belief appears on the table where the tasks are written. Before his departure, Tao reminds that God exists. But, in his opinion, God is a stronger being, very similar to man. If the team works hard, they will be able to become one themselves. After finishing his speech, Tao disappears. Kingshin and Tao find themselves in the sky, under the clouds. The girl asks the gentleman why he wants to help these mortals. The guy replies to his subordinate that if he wants to restore the rule of heaven, mortals are the most important part to this. Tao also adds that all this is focused on people. The girl salutes, thereby agreeing with her master. When the young man finishes his monologue, Kingshin asks his master where they will go next. The blue light reappears around them, and Tao replies that they are on their way to the underworld. The underworld is in chaos. The clouds have turned purple, lightning flashes in the sky, and half-dead people walk on the ground. The emotions with which they died were frozen on their faces. The mouths of these people are open, and not even a drop of life is visible in their eyes. Tao looks at everything that is happening with obvious disgust, and the ball tells the young man that this is the underworld, one of the three worlds. He is responsible for death and reincarnation. Kingshin says that such views are not worthy of her master's eyes, so she is going to deal with everything. But Tao stops the girl, since the undead are low-ranking creatures devoid of reason, so you should not waste your strength on them. Then the system asks why Tao is not biased against the undead. The young man replies that the existence of the undead corresponds to the rules of heaven, so they do not differ in any way from other races. At the moment, reincarnation is broken, so they remain dead without reason. A black ball in purple flame appears in front of Kingshin and Tao. The subordinate and the young man are covered with interference, and the girl asks what they will do next. Tao brings his hand to the ball, determined to change everything. The system asks the guy to stop, and says that despite the fact that Tao is able to recreate reincarnation, it will take a lot of effort, and the young man will become vulnerable. The system explains that most likely, the Tao will be able to withstand the first blow, but the second one will already cause injuries. The young man does not consider this a vulnerability. He thinks that the system has other evaluation parameters. The system continues its explanation. The main reason is that the Tao cannot be influenced during the construction of reincarnation, otherwise nothing will work. Tao has a plan. He flies up to Kingshin and grabs her by the waist. The young man says that she can help him, and the girl's body begins to emit green light in the form of smoke. Tao asks his subordinate to lend him her power to reconstruct reincarnation together. Fascinated by this action, the girl does not understand what her master is talking about, so she agrees. The girl and a young man find themselves in a green ball. A bony hand appears from a pile of skeletons. It can't find its own, but when it finds it in a bunch of other heads, it puts it on itself. The skeleton feels strange. She thinks it's the end of an era or rebirth. This skeleton is a divine, level warrior named Gui Dai. Gui Dai looks up at the source of the bright light and sees the great reincarnation. She can't believe that Heavenly Tao is actually doing this. In the beginning, Gui Dai and Yuan Xuan from the ancient Yuanshan family fought for control of reincarnation. The latter received half of the power, but the reincarnation process was disrupted. Seeing the young man, Gui Dai thinks about how the Heavenly Tao changed his appearance, because before he changed his appearance to male, then to female. But it doesn't matter to the skeleton. If he takes the initiative, then Gui Dai will be only too happy. Not far from himself, Gui Dai begins to hear the voices of the undead. Someone was talking about his child. Someone remembered himself as a guard. The skeleton understands that all these people have regained their consciousness and memory. She is amazed by the power of the Heavenly Tao. The skeleton is afraid that she will suffer if she takes at least one extra step. But when those people are resurrected, the probability of success will be much higher. Moreover, reincarnation has undergone changes. Not only the dead remain in a winning position. Gui Dai falls to the ground and decides to forget himself, because this time the Lord will sort everything out. After a while, the dead begin to turn into their former forms. Kingshin tells the master that several creatures have appeared not far from them. Tao hugs the girl closer to him and asks not to worry about her, because he will take care of her safety. The young man snaps his fingers and a dark silhouette of the Heavenly Tao appears outside the ball. He can handle the job of a watchman. Kingshin asks the master why the young man won't let her go if he wants to stop those creatures. Tao replies to the girl that he is pursuing his goals, and the thought flashes through his head that if he allows Kingshin to fight, the world will be destroyed before the guy restores reincarnation. A dark silhouette hovers in the air. Opposite him are various creatures. The silhouette offers two options for the outcome of events. The first is to go back, and in the second the creatures can continue the offensive. But then the silhouette will kill everyone. The creatures fall silent for a second, but then one of them says that everything said is a bluff, and he is interested in seeing the power of this silhouette. While the Dao doppelganger is successfully coping in battle, a skeleton in a dark robe appears behind him, and there is a purple ball near his hands. This skeleton is Ao's. Its strength is an early rank of the Order of Heaven. During the second great cycle, in order to protect his master, he tried to restore his consciousness after death, relying on powerful magical power. The Eppa strikes a dark silhouette. The silhouette, feeling the attack of gravity, says that magic of this kind cannot stop him. Suddenly, a creature in the form of a rat, the size of a man, appears. He says that this force is enough to detain the double. The name of this rat is Slot. Its strength is the middle rank of the Order of Heaven. He is the first known Rat Clan assassin with super fast speed and unsurpassed killing skills. He was killed while trying to attack the elf god. After seeing the ball containing Kingshin and Dao, Slot decided that this mission was for him. Therefore, he leaves the silhouette and goes to the ball. Kingshin is scared of a rat attack, so he presses closer to Tao. He puts his arm around her and tells her not to look. A Dao double flies up to the Slot from behind. The silhouette grabs the rat by the head and sends the Slot to the ground with a blue beam. The rat is pinned down by the silhouette's attack and it dies. The Dao doppelganger folds his arms on his chest and says that there is no need to go far with games. The rest of the creatures begin to rebel because the dark silhouette is one, and there are many of them. Therefore, everyone decides to attack the double in order to show their power. They are confident that they will be able to defeat the doppelganger because, in their opinion, they are superior to him in strength. The silhouette folds his arms on his chest and decides to show his absolute strength because these creatures have no idea what awaits them. The blue laser presses the creatures to the ground, and the silhouette tells everyone to kneel. All creatures are paralyzed, and they cannot move. Only two girls, one of whom was a mermaid, remain untouched. They are surprised by this terrifying power. In just a few words he managed to suppress so many creatures. Ominous laughter is heard behind the girls. It was the skeleton knight Wanhai. He noticed that such interesting people had not visited the underworld for a long time, so Vanhai would like to try this power on himself. The creatures, seeing Vanhai, begin to whisper, and one of them tells that in the first cycle he was the most powerful knight. Even after his death, Wanhai did not exhaust his strength, and he is currently one of the most powerful beings in the world. Wanhai says that all the treasures of heaven should belong to him, and those who stand in his way should die. The skeleton aims its cannon at the dark silhouette. He releases attacks, but misses. Then the knight grins and decides to make a stronger attack. Red rays begin to surround the horse and Vanhai's body. His attacks fly into other creatures. Some barely manage to stay in place. The power of Wanhai is so powerful that it has spread throughout the cemetery. The whirlwind of their Wanhai attacks is spreading everywhere. Chaos is happening in the afterlife, but the skeleton is not going to retreat so easily. The knight climbs onto his horse, and a purple shield appears in front of him, which completely envelops him and the horse. A funnel of his strength forms under the horse and Vanhai rushes at full speed to strike, but he fails to do so. In front of him, the rider sees a fist of a dark silhouette. The fist attacks Wanhai and hits him in the face. Then there is another flash, but already blue, which erases the knight from the face of the earth. Wanhai flies off his horse. His body crumbles into ashes. The skeleton of his horse crumbles into small pieces on different parts of the earth. The creatures who watch the battle of the two strongest creatures freeze in a daze. They don't understand how such power can be in a person. The Dao doppelganger turns around and sees three beings. The founder of the necromancer sect is Daisy. The ancestor of the corpse sect from the second cycle is Gulao, middle rank. And the totem of the eastern land is a Hao with an average rank. She was the only one of the three of them who was injured. The silhouette flies closer to the creatures and asks if they want to fight him. Frightened, they reply that they only wanted to know the name of His Excellency and the purpose of his visit. The doppelganger answers so that they don't ask unnecessary questions, but just wait. The ball in which Kingshin and Tao were located begins to emit light, which turns a dark and gloomy place into a bright world. The sky no longer has a dirty purple hue. It has become clear and has acquired a warm orange color. Daisy, Gulao and Hova are watching what is happening. Hova concludes that he does not rule the law. He is the law. Daisy replies that if he managed to restore reincarnation, then what else is he capable of? Hearing about reincarnation, the two turn to the necromancer and are surprised by this. The silhouette again says not to guess, but just wait and soon they will find out everything. Skeletal bodies begin to become covered with skin and acquire a human appearance. When Tao announces to Kingshan that they have finished, the young man looks at the new world and says that all this is for the sake of the normal functioning of the borders. Gui Dai is completely naked sitting on a mountain of skulls. The girl, laughing maliciously, examines her body and talks about the heavenly Tao, which could easily return souls to all people. A grin appears on Gui Dai's face, and the girl talks about how much she would like to thank Mr. Heavenly Tao. The demon lady's body has been completely restored. Heavenly Tao, Daisy, Gulao and Hao watch the reborn people. Resurrected people examine their bodies, laugh and rejoice that blood is flowing through their veins again. Daisy notices that souls are improving, and Gulao says that no one can make up for broken souls. No one but the Heavenly Tao. The creatures turn around and notice the young man and Kingshan behind them. Hova asked disdainfully if he was a Heavenly Tao. Hearing such a tone, Kingshan becomes enraged, because no one dares to treat the master like that. The young man stops his subordinate and replies that he really is a Heavenly Tao. Hova's body shivers, and she remembers the consequences after the second great cycle. The girl does not want to experience this again. Tao is approaching Hove, and says that many have escaped the catastrophe. The guy asks the girl what happened then. Hova replies that it is a secret world. The young man does not understand what she is talking about. The girl explains that if there are enough resources in the secret world, then the disaster can be survived. Then Tao is perplexed, because these three have the power to resist the Heavenly Tao. Daisy replies that despite the fact that the underworld is quite sparse, there are more than 100 heavenly forces in it. They work together to resist the heavens, but in the end only a dozen supporters survived. Hova dares, and asks why the Heavenly Tao needed to cause this disaster. The young man replies that their world is already the pinnacle of existence one way or another. It is inevitable that they will also be affected by changes in the law. But not everyone has the law. Only a limited number of people, creatures without them, see what others have, so they start fighting. The Heavenly Tao evenly distributes opportunities between people, but gradually the balance of power has been disrupted. For example, the reincarnation of this world. All because of the fact that the head of the Huanshan clan, Yuan Xuan, and the demon lady began to fight with each other. In the end, reincarnation was broken. Since then, reincarnation has lost its power, which led to similar consequences. Thus, the Heavenly Tao wants to save the lives of more people. Otherwise, this world will come to an end. After listening to the speech of the Heavenly Tao, Daisy says that in the past they were obsessed only with cultivation, so they did not pay attention to others. Gulao confirms the girl's words, calling it a kind of retribution. The Heavenly Tao adds that regardless of the person, he, in any case, will make a mistake one day, so it is very important to correct it in time. The creatures do not understand what the young man means by the word fix. Therefore, Tao gives a chance to improve, and offers to join him. The creatures are surprised by this suggestion, and Kingshan says that they are not strong enough and are not worthy of the attention of the master. But Tao objects, saying that any forces are necessary to maintain order. Despite the fact that they are powerless against the Heavenly Tao, they are among the most powerful in their world. With the same success, a young man can say that reincarnation is not perfect. Reincarnation has a mechanism of natural absorption of souls, so weak souls are more susceptible to absorption. But for beings superior to gods and kings, the power of reincarnation is not that important. Therefore, the Heavenly Tao points to the three beings and says that their powers are more important than ever. When danger arises, they must transfer the opponent's soul to the realm of reincarnation. The young man even came up with a name for this profession, Messengers of the Devil, and the organization will be called the Afterlife. After seeing Kingshan's angry aura, everyone except Hova agrees. The girl says she will join, but with one condition. Hearing this, Kingshan becomes enraged, because, in her opinion, some totem of the Eastern land has no right to set conditions. Heavenly Tao stops the subordinate again, saying that only mutual benefit can make cooperation truly worthwhile. The young man understands what condition the girl is talking about. He clarifies about the wound, and Hova gives a positive answer. The girl turns her back to the Heavenly Tao, lifts her hair so that the young man can see the wound better. She is trying to find a position in which it will be more convenient to see her wound. There are 3 stripes on the girl's back from the claws of a demonic wolf. They bleed and look terrifying on the back of an elegant girl. But to heal this wound, the sap of the tree of life from the forest of elves is needed. Tao agrees to Hova's condition, and the girl thanks him for it. When Heavenly Tao says that almost everyone has joined his organization, but they do not have a manager, Kingshan has a suggestion. The subordinate mentions Yu Mingshan, saying that this girl is the best fit. The guy says her name again and finds the girl in the system. The girl without clothes with long hair appears on the sign, and a description and characteristics of the girl were also written. She was lying in the fetal position, as if she was under years of ice. Yu Mingshan has a reverse heaven rank. First she defied the heavens, and then she accepted defeat from the sword of the demonic lord of ice. Heavenly Tao asks the ball if he can resurrect this girl. Shar replies that the young man's powers are able to bring Yu Mingshan back to life. Hearing about this, the young man and Kingshan leave in order to resurrect Yu Mingshan. While they are on their way, Kingshan has a question. It is obvious that the Heavenly Tao himself can heal Hao's wound. Then why should they go to the forest of elves? The young man replies that this is the same as completing a mission from a non-player character. When Heavenly Tao and Kingshan reach their destination, they see a huge tree in front of them. The ground around it is strewn with crystals, and the tree itself is surrounded by chains. Purple smoke had accumulated around the tree, and seals were printed on the tree itself, which meant that the tree was enchanted. They come closer and see a girl sitting on her knees. Her body was limp, and her hands were tied with chains to the branches of a tree. Yu Mingshan was motionless and not breathing. The young man comes closer to Yu Mingshan and takes the girl by the chin. Tao examines her face and makes sure that the girl is dead. He concludes that despite the fact that she was killed and sealed, her aura is just like that of a living person. A ball appears near the guy and says that among the 5 incarnations of heaven, the power of Kingshan is the weakest. The young man is glad that the girl did not hear what the system just said. The Heavenly Tao opens the system and a message appears in front of him, which says that the resurrection of the incarnations of heaven takes away a large amount of power from the Heavenly Tao and cannot be returned to the Master again. The young man understands that in the event of her death, his power will not return to him, so you need to be careful. Then another message appears. The system asks for another confirmation whether the Heavenly Tao really wants to resurrect Yu Mingshan. The guy penetrates his fingers into his forehead and pulls out a small ball with 1% strength. As soon as the power is in the hand of its owner, the strongest wind is understood, because of which it is difficult for people to stand on their feet. This one reaches Daisy, Golao and Hao. After seeing this flow of power, they don't understand why Lord Heavenly Tao would release so much power. Dui Dai also feels the power of the Heavenly Tao, and she thinks that he guessed that the girl is alive. As soon as the young man puts the ball in his fist, everything calms down around him. He didn't expect that the powers of the Heavenly Tao were so terrifying. Amazing. The guy kneels in front of Yu Mingshan and brings a blue ball to her chest. He inserts it with his fingers into the girl's heart and bright blue rays begin to appear from her chest. When the girl comes to life, she immediately rushes into the arms of her master. But the idol is interrupted by Kingshan, who came to separate them. Yu Mingshan immediately apologizes, explaining his action by saying that it was done on emotion. Yu Mingshan kneels before the Heavenly Tao, thanks him, and promises not to let the master down again. The young man answers her that the girl was resurrected in order for Tao to give her one task. Starting today, Yu Mingshan will be the governing organization of the afterlife. Her task is to build the afterlife and ensure the safety of reincarnation. The girl bows before the Heavenly Tao and replies that this assignment will be everything for her. And the young man understands that now it will be even harder for him, because another girl has appeared, and one Kingshan was enough for him. Yu Mingshan decides to ask if the Lord will stay in the underworld. Kingshan gets into the conversation, and jealously clinging to the young man, says that the Heavenly Tao has other things to do, so she will stay here alone. Tao runs his hand over Yu Mingshan's head, and tells her that she is one of the incarnations of heaven, so she should behave more confidently. The young man also adds that he has already completed reincarnation, so the girl only needs to become the mistress of the afterlife. Upon hearing his master's request, Yu Mingshan begins broadcasting to the entire underworld. The girl appears to be one of the incarnations of heaven. From now on, she will rule the afterlife, as well as assist the Heavenly Tao in governing the entire earth. Now all people must work for the benefit of the Heavenly Tao, and the above-placed beings will be responsible for the construction work. Powerful beings will become messengers of the devil, will go for souls to lead them to reincarnation. If anyone dares to disobey, they will immediately become an enemy of the Heavenly Tao. After hearing this news, Gui Dai becomes enraged. When Heavenly Tao and Kingshan descend from the mountain where Yu Mingshan was imprisoned, the young man notes the girl's abilities. The ball reminds that she used to be the mistress of the clan. Tao understands that there should be no problems if the afterlife is left to her. Then Kingshan asks where they are going next, and the young man talks about the forest of elves. The slave trade continues in the elven forest. Several carts are moving along the edge of the forest, and riders on horseback are riding at a distance from them. One of the hunters who drove the cart tells his colleague that the current elves are of the highest quality. The second adds that if they manage to sell slaves, they will be able to enrich themselves decently. The man sitting on the dragon asks those men to be silent, because even before leaving the forest, one should not lose vigilance. This man is the commander of a group of abductors from the Earth Dragon. He is a knight of the 3rd rank, and his name is Sabai. While the other hunters are talking, Sabai notices a silhouette in the distance. One of the men clearly did not like it, because no one dares to block their way. A dark silhouette points to the cart in which the elf was sitting, and Sabai decides that this person wants to get their prey. Seeing a spear in the hands of an unknown person, hunters burst out laughing, because no one uses this weapon in foot combat. The silhouette kneels down and raises the spear up. The area around him begins to glow with blue light, and a huge dragon of the 5th rank appears under the man. Elves see a dark silhouette on a dragon, and they are sincerely glad that they will finally be rescued. One of the girls says that the Lord of the Elves heard their prayers and sent them a savior. But the elf, who had no traces of happiness on her face, understands that if this is really the Lord of the Elves, then an elven angel should have appeared, but the silhouette of that person was dark. Sabai decided to make concessions, so he tells the dark silhouette that he can take 2 slaves if he needs them. But the silhouette does not agree with this condition, so with a gesture he shows that he needs all the elves. Sabai becomes enraged. He remembers how much effort and time his team spent to catch these elves. Therefore, having decided that since the Sabai dragon was not afraid of the knight of the 5th rank, then all this is a fake, and the man gives the order to kill the knight. The hunters go into battle, but all to no avail. The dragon releases a blue flame from its mouth, which immediately kills all the hunters. Seeing that all the comrades have been exterminated, Sabai begs the silhouette not to approach. A dark silhouette swings a spear, and the whole wagon crumbles into splinters. 3 girls are on the loose. The silhouette approaches the elves, and one of them thanks the knight for saving her. While the silhouette has its back to him, Sabai decides to attack. But the man does not have time. The knight impales Sabai's body on a spear. Seeing that the leader is dead, the remaining hunters decide to escape. But the 3rd squad of the Guardian Legion comes out of the forest, and they stop the hunters. One of the keepers notices a dark silhouette, and tells the Guardian girl that this man saved their comrades. He managed to defeat all the kidnappers. When one of the keepers stops the hunter and says that he is going to sell them to the nobles and earn money, the dark silhouette takes the form of this keeper. The silhouette shoots an arrow at the keeper's head, and he dies. Seeing this, one of the keepers asks everyone to prepare for battle because the keeper was killed. But one of the elves stands up to protect the silhouette. She covers him with her body and asks him to stop. The girl says that he didn't do anything wrong, he just brings justice to the world. The appearance of the deceased guardian frees the rest of the elves, freeing their hands from the ropes already released. The elf tells the keeper that this silhouette has a peculiarity. It attacks only those who intend to sell a person. This is true for both kidnappers and keepers. That is why, until he feels the intention of selling, he will not attack. Having figured out what the matter is, the keeper tells the others not to take anyone away. The elf standing next to the guardian notices how the dark silhouette begins to evaporate. Finally, the girl thanks the man again for saving her. Heavenly Dao and Kingshan were watching everything from above. They hung in the sky and watched as the early adopted law came into force. The devil's messengers appear behind them. They descend to the ground and, putting metal collars on the souls of hunters, send them to the afterlife. One of the elves noticed someone's presence, but she was interrupted by the keeper in order to return to their hometown, Kale. Tao watched the hunter's souls fly away, and he rejoices that the transition to the afterlife is working. Kingshan looks admiringly at his master, and says that it's all thanks to him. The young man grins and asks not to change the subject and not to forget the purpose of their visit. Their next destination is the capital of the elves, the City of Life, Kale. There is a small group on the street, consisting of their rescued elves and keepers. One of the keepers says that from now on all the rescued will be responsible for the cleanliness of the city. Elves are given brooms, and they get to work. The girl who stood up for the protection of the dark silhouette stopped at the fence and looked at the tree. She is glad that she was finally able to return home. Kingshan and Heavenly Dao get out of the carriage. The young man pulls the girl by the ear, saying that in this way they will be able to blend in with the crowd. A man in a suit walked behind Dao, followed by a maid. They were talking about the amount of minerals that the lower races had dug up today. The young man turns his head in their direction and sees a poor elf begging, and that man passes by him. Seeing this, the young man says that he is not against the aristocracy, but there is a big gap between the poor and the rich. He is depressed by this fact. A ball appears near the guy, who says that the heavenly Tao can wipe out the entire aristocracy from the face of the earth. But the young man shrugs off these words. To achieve equality, the deprived must fight for themselves. The intervention of third parties will only make them the next criminals. The heavenly Tao suddenly pays attention to the world tree. Since it is in good condition, the young man decides that it is connected with the elven god. King Shin asks the master if he wants to find the elf god. The young man agrees, and the subordinate is already going to burn the tree so that God immediately appears. Tao stops the girl, saying that he does not want to fight. He just needs a conversation with God. King Shin remembers about the second cycle. Then this girl was a rebel, so there is nothing to talk about with her. While Tao is explaining to King Shin that they need to get as many allies as possible, a noise is heard not far from them. The elven princess Yusha has entered the city. The girl was riding a dragon and was rushing at high speed, so she shouted to everyone who got in her way. The dragon is approaching the heavenly Tao, and the young man uses the force through which the girl drove through it. The system tells Tao that it was Princess Yusha. She is in the middle of the third rank. The young man did not like how the children of the nobility behave, so he is going to fix it. An elf girl rushes past Tao. She flies up to her grandfather, who was just almost knocked down by Yusha. The elf manages to grab the man and pull him away from the dragon. Grandfather thanks the girl for saving him, and wishes her that the elven goddess mother would protect the girl. Heavenly Tao approaches them and claps his hands. He says that the elf is very kind to feudal society. The irritated blonde turns to the voice and asks the young man who he is. Tao calmly replies that he is only a passerby. Heavenly Tao approaches Grandpa and asks him if the elf princess has always been so rude. The man replies that all the nobility behaves this way. The fate of the elves was predetermined from birth. The golden and moon elves are members of the royal family. Sea and forest elves are artisans. Gray and black elves, like Grandpa, can only be slaves. The elf does not agree with the man's statement. She adheres to the opinion that it is impossible to determine the fate of a person by his birth. Grandfather replies that gray elves live only 1,000 years, while golden elves live more than 5,000 years. The gods have already determined their fate. The elves can only obey. The young man says that elves are long-lived, and the ball replies that the price for this is low fertility. This is also one of the heavenly rules. The stronger the creature, the less likely it is to have offspring. Tao wonders if in this case he can have children. The system responds that it depends on whether the young man himself wants to have offspring or that someone else has. King Shin, hearing about the fact that the gentleman wants to have a child, begins to ask him about how many children he wants. While Tao is trying to calm King Shin down, Grandpa smiles and says that the young people are very energetic now. The man thanks the elf again for saving him and is about to leave. The girl is indignant, because it shouldn't be like this with elves. Tao comes up behind the girl and says that now the elves are not the same as they were when she ruled. The young man pronounces the name of the elf. This girl is Lulusha, the former mother goddess of the elves. Hearing this, bright green circles form around the girl. Streaks appear on her body and face, and her hair flew up from her sudden strength. The girl asks the young man who he is. The guy grins, because she doesn't even know the heavenly Tao. Lulusha does not believe in the words of the young man, because the heavenly Tao looks completely different. Tao decides to explain it differently. A huge blue shield appears around them, which blocks the powers of the former goddess. Tao approaches the girl, takes her chin and asks if she believes him now. Lulusha did not expect that Tao would be near her so quickly. The girl boldly throws the young man's hand away from her face and activates her power. She is about to strike, but is stopped by Qin Tian. The girl puts her foot in front of the elf in order to stop her. The subordinate did not like the way this rebel treated her master. Qin Tian decides to teach the girl a lesson, so he strikes and throws the elf a few meters away. But the goddess does not intend to give up, because her soul has just begun to recover, and her strength barely reaches the top of the 5th rank. In the hands of the elf turns out to be a scepter, and she decides to use the movement in space. Tao notices that an elven mage of the 5th rank is a rarity. The young man does not allow the girl to escape. He activates a shield around the city, and when Lulusha was ready to fly away, she crashes into the barrier. Due to a strong blow, the girl falls to the ground, forming a depression in the ground under her. Qin Tian flies up to the elf and, sitting on top, wrings her hand. Tao, after observing this, decides to stop his subordinate. The girl is indignant, because Lulusha is the mother goddess of the elves and she is rebelling against heaven. After Qin Tian releases the goddess, Tao approaches the victim and asks if she now believes that the young man is a heavenly Tao. When the girl is thinking, the guy grabs her by the shoulder and says that he wants to ask a couple of questions. Realizing that in this situation Dongfeng Heishan could not escape, the girl decides to cooperate. Praising Luluthia for choosing to cooperate, Tao asks about the rebels' plan. The girl replies that despite being a member of the rebels of the second cycle, the goddess does not know if they have a plan against heaven in the third calendar. The girl also added that even if Dongfeng Heishan and the others were here, they would not have said about the plan. After the words of the goddess, Qin Tian is angry. It seems to her that Lulusha simply does not want to tell the truth. Having calmed the subordinate, Tao asks the second question. He asks about why Lulusha hates heaven. Grinning, the goddess replies that in the first cycle, she was a goddess born with a world tree. Together with the world tree, they protect the birth and growth of elves. But at the end of the first cycle, Lulusha saw the catastrophe with her own eyes. She barely survived. Her last breath was left, and the world tree turned back into a seed. The girl becomes enraged, because there is no point in this question. Then Tao replies that the destruction of the past heavenly Tao only led to the incitement of hatred. The ball enters the conversation. He says that in this past heavenly Tao failed. The young man decides to ask the last question. He asks Lulusha what is the most important thing in a girl's heart. The goddess thinks for a moment, but the girl quickly finds the answer. Lulusha says she just wants to live and protect her people forever. Tao grins and asks if she can do it. The girl is angry, and the young man says to face the truth. With the help of his power, Tao moves everyone to the Elven Forest mine. Lulusha does not understand where they ended up, and the young man replies that this place is called a good job for earning money. The goddess turns her gaze to how one of the elves hits a slave and tells them to hurry up with the delivery, otherwise they will be whipped. Seeing the mistreatment of people, the goddess becomes enraged. The girl does not understand how those elves dared to treat their own people like that. Tao says he can only stop the slave trade. If it's only slavery, then the black silhouette won't appear. Hearing about the dark silhouette, the goddess remembered about that incident on the edge of the forest. Then Lulusha decides to ask, if the goal is to save the slaves, then why not use force to pure slavery? Then the young man replies that slaves appear not only because of the slave trade. Criminals and prisoners are also slaves. The guy asks if the goddess wants to save them too. The girl becomes even more furious and replies that the things she hates in the slave trade, murder, harassment, oppression, all this was decided by the leaders of their race. Tao approaches the girl from behind and, taking her by the face, says that the mother goddess of the elves should not throw the responsibility on him. The goddess is perplexed. Since Tao has the power to change everything, then why can't he save more people? The young man approaches the girl even closer and asks when the heavenly Tao did not want to change everything that she did. He also asks why the heavenly kingdom was devastated and why heaven is the world with the most resources. Lulusha breaks out of Tao's hands and says that they just wanted to live normally. The young man objects, because thanks to this desire they tried to take away the power of heaven. Tao notices that her people, and even the nobility, were just looking for a better life, oppressing their own kind. The mother goddess does not agree with the young man's statement. She says that this happened because the Tao wants to take away the power of all creatures to become stronger. Because of this the elves have to resist, otherwise the Tao will kill them. The young man replies that the power of the heavenly Tao comes from all beings. The death of all beings weakens the power of the heavenly Tao. The young man asks why he would, instead of destroying the strongest creatures, destroy everyone. The girl clutches her head, screaming that she does not know the answer to this question. The young man says that even though she doesn't know anything, she still wants to know. Then a blue light and a skeleton appear in the Tao's hand. Lulutia's eyes widen after what she sees. They find themselves in a dark cave. Tao shows the skeleton of a girl, as she was when she just woke up from the cycle. At that moment, Lulusha had completely drained the source of the aura. The purpose of the aura source is to restore the world tree and give it its own life force. This source of power has resurrected the continent. If the former goddess had not taken away the source of life, many people could have been born. The girl's voice breaks into a scream. She understands what she has done, but she just wants to live. If the Tao had not destroyed all living things, Luluthia would not have had to use the source of life to be reborn. The young man replies that if she had taken advantage of the opportunity given to all beings by heaven, then the heavenly Tao would not have had to destroy her. Some put pressure on others because of greed, and the girl faced the same problem with the heavenly Tao. Tao asks what Lulusha would say, looking into the eyes of fallen elves. But the girl does not have time to answer, as a voice is heard not far from them. A man reports an alarm as dark elf rebels have broken in. Before he can say anything else, a sword is thrust through his body. Chattel, the leader of the Dark Elf resistance, appears. He shouts to his fellow Dark Elves that he has come to free them. Chaos and murder begin to reign around. Blood splashes, gun sounds and screams can be seen everywhere. Tears begin to appear in Lulusha's eyes. The girl covered her mouth with her hand as soon as she saw the horror happening around her. Goddess start crying from injustice. It shouldn't be like this. Hearing the girl's mumbling, Heavenly Tao asks her what she is going to do if this all stops. If the root of the problem is not solved, then everything will happen behind her back. A terrifying grin appears on the girl's face. She blames the Heavenly Tao for everything that is happening. The girl rises from the floor and a magic scepter appears in her hand. The goddess, full of determination, decides to stop it because she still has the strength. Kingshan starts to get angry again because she doesn't learn from her mistakes. Tao detains the girl again and tells Lulusha that in the second cycle, the elves have already divided into higher and lower classes. When a young man sees a misunderstanding on the girl's face, he decides to explain everything. In the second cycle, the Golden Elves, already close to Lulathea, were already nobles, and the Dark Elves were discounted. They never considered the Dark Elves to be the same race. They were considered scum among the elves. Therefore, the Heavenly Tao saw the suffering of all beings and decided to destroy everything. And the goddess of the elves didn't even look after her people. The girl's courage evaporates, as does her scepter. Tao asks Lulusha to stop crying, and tells her that if there is a problem, then it needs to be solved. So did the Heavenly Tao, and so the goddess must do. But Lulusha is too weak, she has no strength left. Tao comes closer to the girl and asks her where her courage went, what happened when she stood up against the heavens. The young man asks to show at least half of her strength, and the elves will change. The girl gathers her resolve and a plan appears in her head. The girl is going to the fortress of the resistance of the Dark Elves to find out their requirements. The young man praises the goddess, and to reward the girl, he decides to give her a lift. Tao snaps his fingers and a portal appears in front of them. Kingshan begins to get angry at the gentleman for helping Lulusha because she is very rude. The young man replies that another friend is better than an enemy. The team reaches the fortress of the resistance of the Dark Elves. Lulusha approaches the entrance to the cave and seeing a large spider with red eyes, the girl decides that old acquaintances are here. While the goddess is standing at the cave, Tao warns her that he has stopped hiding her presence, so she is now seen. The girl goes into the cave, and as soon as the spider noticed the presence of the stranger, the Dark Elves begin to attack. They shoot dozens of arrows, but the girl does not allow herself to be wounded. She puts up a shield in front of her, which protects her from attacks. The elves see this spell, and they understand that only magicians of the 5th rank can use it. One of the elves flies at the goddess with the words that the Golden Elves must die. The girl activates a force called Forest Protection. Tree branches begin to appear from the shield of the goddess, which grab the Dark Elves by the arms and legs, thereby immobilizing them. The Tao says that even at the 4th rank, the Dark Elves have considerable strength. This is a rarity among humans. An aura of purple color begins to differ in the cave and a girl comes out from there. She tells everyone to stop because they are not her equal. Also, this girl adds that, after all, Lulusha was an elven goddess. This girl looked like a spider. She had no legs, and her body grew into the torso of a spider. Lulusha recognizes the girl. Her name is Grace. She is the goddess of the Dark Elves. Heavenly Tao is looking through the system for this girl. Her strength is the realm of the divine king Gu Feng, the 5th rank. She is an elven spider goddess, represents the shadow under the tree and the keeper of insects swarming on the tree. Tao doesn't understand why she is at the top of the 5th rank. He remembers that the current elven god is at the top of the heavenly rank. It seems to the young man that this is too big a difference. The system explains to the guy that there are 2 types of gods, natural gods and gods of faith. Nature gods are born by the will of heaven and are usually very strong. The gods of faith have to draw strength from the faith of others. If there are few believers, then the power will decrease and disappear. The goddess of the Dark Elves is the goddess of faith. Grace is glad that Lulusha is alive, because now she can kill her herself. Grace swings at the goddess with a scythe, but Lulusha manages to move away. The girl explains that she came here to save the Dark Elves. Grace's eyes fill with hatred, and she tells the girl that the Dark Elves suffered from injustice while she ruled, and things are only getting worse. Only by killing Lulathea and destroying her divine image can the Dark Elves be saved. After finishing her speech, Grace orders the Dark Elves to attack the enemies. Tao sees that elves are flying at him, so he stops time. The spider does not understand why all the Dark Elves froze. The young man replied that he had only stopped time. The girl does not believe in his words, because no one can do this. Ordinary people can't do that, but he's a heavenly Tao can. The girl does not believe her ears. She can't believe that this is the same heavenly Tao that destroyed the world in the first and second cycles. Grace uses magic, and now instead of a spider torso, she has human legs. After making sure that this young man is really a heavenly Tao, the spider goddess bows to the Tao and asks for forgiveness for her rudeness. Tao replies that he was just passing by, but the elves still need to question their god. The young man turns his gaze to Lulusha. The girl apologizes to Grace. She recognizes the fact that she is a bad goddess and an inept creator. The spider goddess replies that the fact that Lulusha blames herself will not save the dark elves. They need an opportunity to take revenge. Lulusha replies that she understands perfectly well what they are feeling right now. Their current state is similar to that of the goddess when she rebelled against the heavens. The goddess thought only of resisting oppression. She was ready to do anything for revenge. When Luluthia created the elves, she gave each race the appropriate characteristics and symbols. Golden elves, sun and light; moon elves, moon and night; forest, trees and animals; by sea, water and fish; gray, earth and life; and black, spiders and darkness. The goddess thought that everyone would be equal and would love each other. She hopes that the dark elves will be able to cope with hatred and live in peace. After these words, Grace becomes furious. The girl does not understand how she should explain to the dark elves that you should not be offended by the golden elves, despite the fact that they are constantly humiliated. Only by paying for the spilled blood, the elves will be able to live in peace. Grace grabs Lulusha by the shoulders and says that if she really wants to help the dark elves, then she should join the spider goddess to get rid of the golden elves together. After these words, Lulusha becomes sad. She replies that she can't do that. The dark and golden elves are her children. She doesn't want anyone to disappear. Grace becomes furious and shouts for the goddess to stop talking nonsense and drives the girl away so that she will continue to support the golden elves. Suddenly, Tauken gets involved in their dispute. Since the dark elves are constantly resisting, in that case, what do they want to achieve after they take revenge? Grace replies that she is doing this so that the golden elves will also feel despair. The spider goddess wants them to feel for themselves what it's like to stay in the dark underground. Then the heavenly Tao assumes that they do not hate the cruel rule of the golden elves, but they themselves want to rule the same way. But Grace was very offended by these words. The girl declares that she is not as selfish as the golden elves. All she wants is peace for the dark elves. Tauken smirks and says that if the dark elves are sure that they are different from the golden ones, then they should not do the same thing that the golden elves do. It's a moral issue, and if they also want to start oppressing, it means that they are beginning to become like the law of the jungle. Tao also adds that if Grace wants to fight the golden elves for power, then the girl should not complain that her people are suffering. But if the spider goddess is interested in the question of morality, then the young man advises not to go the girl the same way. The girl's body shivers, and she says that this is unfair. Really, for the fact that the golden elves cause them so much pain, they won't even get a proper answer. The heavenly Tao answers that you will have to pay for any actions. But the price of the dark elves is not to enslave the golden elves. Grace exhales noisily and agrees with Tao's words. She needs to create favorable conditions for life, for the sake of the dark elves. Lulusha rejoices at this verdict. The girl turns to the young man and asks for forgiveness for the fact that she interfered with him in their family showdown. Tao-san replies that meeting the elves gives him inspiration. The elves are her family, and all three worlds are his. The young man pursues the goal of finding ways to reconcile the three worlds. Meanwhile, Lulusha has already found a solution to the problem. The girl needs to talk to the current lord of the elves. If she doesn't speak, the goddess will use force. The young man grins and says that force will not solve the problem, but it will help to deal with the enemy. The girl replies that if the conversation fails, then the golden elves and the new lord of the elves are her enemies. Since the decision has already been made, Tauken decides to go with Lulusha and Grace to the elf palace. There is unrest in the Kale palace. A cup of tea flies to the floor. Princess Yusha put her foot on the dark elf's head and pressed the girl to the floor. The princess is unhappy that she was disobeyed. She told me to add less sugar because she's on a diet. Yusha's gaze is filled with rage. She turns to the maid who was standing behind her and asks if she made this tea. The girl is trembling with fear. She falls to her knees and begs the royal highness to spare her. Yusha is not interested in the maid's excuses and the girl kicks her in the face. Tauken and Lulusha are hanging in the air and watching what is happening through the window. The girl does not understand how the elven nobles can do this to their own clan. The heavenly Tao points to another window. A man leads two slaves, they are wearing metal collars. The door opens, and the man bows to Mr. Vladika, informing him that new servants have arrived. A man is sitting on a bed with a silk golden bed surrounded by slaves. Tao asks the goddess how she feels looking at everything that is happening. A scepter appears in the girl's hands, and she says that if these people are really elven nobles, in that case, negotiations are unnecessary. The goddess activates a yellow field under her and asks the sleeping tree of the world to answer her call. After this action, the earth begins to shake. No one understands what happened. The elves start to run away in a panic. Someone is praying to God to have mercy. The keepers are starting to run away from the edge of the forest because the tree people are out of control. Thanks to the call of the goddess, the green dragon of the elven forest, Iraq, woke up. He looks towards the tree of the world and a deafening roar is heard from the throat of the monster. Thanks to this cry, the animal's eyes turned red. Meanwhile, in the heavenly world, in the palace of the heavenly elf god, a young man is sitting. This is the god of the elves of the third cycle, Randall. He sensed the state of the world tree and wondered why it was angry. The man calls the guards. 3 girls appear in front of him, and Randall orders them to check the world tree. If it is hostile towards the guards, then they will need to get rid of it. Clouds are gathering in the sky. Grace, looking at the tree, beckons Chattel to her. The girl orders to prepare all the dark elves. The battle is about to begin. Meanwhile, there is a conflict in the palace. The angry current lord of the elves asks Lulusha and Tao Tsan who they are, and for what reason the tree of the world was angry. The girl replies that he doesn't need to know who she is. The goddess wants the elven nobles to pay for the oppression of their own race. The lord of the elves begins to laugh, and the girl does not understand what made him laugh so much. The man says that she will never understand one thing. Even with the help of the elves and the world tree, the golden elves will not be overthrown. Because the god of the golden elves is the current lord of the elves, one of the gods of the heavens of the west. Luluthia turns around, saying that in this case they have nothing to talk about. But the Lord will not leave it just like that. A terrifying grin appears on his face, and he asks the goddess if she is sure that she wants to leave. The Lord gestures at the enemies, and all the guards point their weapons at Tao Tsan and Lulusha. Heavenly Tao warned the girl that they are all above the 5th rank, so she should be more careful. The goddess grins in frustration, and says that she just wants harmony. The girl does not understand why the elves do not listen to her. The young man replies that it is not worth asking him about this, because he also asked this question earlier. The Lord asks the last words of Tao and Lulusha, receiving silence in response. The guards begin to attack. Tears accumulate in the girl's eyes, and she whispers asking not to blame her for her choice. At this moment, tree people appear behind the wall. They are besieging the whole city and the guards are preparing for defense. One of the tree people is about to strike a stone wall, but the blue shield prevents him from doing so. A green dragon appears in the distance. He releases a flame from his mouth, which punches a hole in the wall. This hole allowed the tree people to get into the city. The warriors, seeing the dragon, despaired because they could not stand against him. People are trying to overcome the tree people, but they don't do well. Even magicians can barely cope. Vladika examines the battlefield from a bird's eye view. He sees a dragon and tree people. He does not understand how they ended up here. Then the man turns to Lulusha and tells her that he does not know what she did to the creatures, but victory will be for them in any case. The goddess asks what the Lord means, and the man points his finger at the sky. A bright yellow portal forms in the sky and the Lord's guard flies out from there. One of them, Catherine, says that they came here on the orders of the Lord in order to destroy opponents. Dalkin has 4 members of the guard and thinks that this elf lord planned to destroy the world tree. Lulusha says that she will not allow this to happen. The young man replies that if the girl does not suppress the force, she will go to the world of people, and then there will be trouble. The next second, a purple ray appears from the clouds, which attacks one of the guards. But she manages to notice it, so she parries the blow. Seeing this, Tauken realizes that the aggression of the sky is not enough to influence them. A young man opens the system and asks her to show the rules of the heavenly punishment of the human world. The rule says, if you reflect or break the law, your grief will not dry up, but only a new punishment will descend. The second punishment will begin after a while, and the power will begin to increase until the target is hit. Tao Tsan tells Lulusha that he has revised the law, and a new punishment will come very soon. But the girl hoped that the heavenly Tao would simply kill the guards. The young man replies that it will be difficult to have fun, but you can enjoy the view. A new thunderstorm is gathering in the sky again and much more powerful than the previous one. The guard does not understand why a new thunderstorm appeared, because it reflected the past one. Catherine understands that she needs to hurry. A dragon flies up on a stone wall and calls the guard by name. The girl turns around, and the dragon asks if she really wants to become an enemy of the world tree. Steam is coming out of the dragon's mouth. His eyes have turned red, which meant that the creature is furious. Catherine asks for forgiveness and says that this is an order from the Lord. Then the dragon advises the girl to take a closer look at this Randall. The monster does not believe that a man rightfully considers himself a master. After these words, the girl gets into a pose for striking. She asks the dragon not to insult the Lord. Catherine orders the rest of the girls from the guard to protect the Lord's possessions, and she, in turn, promises to deal with the world tree. The girls take the order and fly away. In the next second, the dragon calls Catherine's behavior arrogant. The dragon assures the girl that he will be able to defeat her, even if he is slightly weakened. The guard, in turn, replies that even in the heyday of the dragon's power, she has nothing to fear. Suddenly, the whole sky turns emerald. The dragon's eyes turn even redder. The strongest wind rises here. The monster raises its wings and promises to quickly deal with the girl. Catherine, in turn, raises her gun and flies to the attack.